All right, all right. Happy Thursday, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Sabs podcast. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. If you're new, I do want to let you know we are also streaming on Rumble and, of course, X and also YouTube. Welcome back, guys. We have a really big show for you tonight. We have some special guests that are going to be stopping by later in the show. And first and foremost, I want you to ask yourself, tonight's theme is more than meets the eye. More than meets the eye. And I want you to think about that as we get into tonight's story. So first and foremost, I do want to start out by giving shout outs to people in the chat, ladies and gents. What is going on, Ed? Next, Candace Owens travels to China and talks to Xi Jinping. Yeah, a lot of people are freaking out. FAFO says, why the fuck is Candace in Russia? Greetings. Rich says, so why didn't Donnie go to Junior's wedding? The Trump Jr. wedding guest list included less than 50 people. My guess is they're major figures in the Epstein files. Yeah, I heard about that wedding. Shout out to Blockbuster. Says hi. Greetings. Liz says, love Candace, love Jen Perelman. Shout out to What Democracy says Jen. Yeah, Jen will be here later in the show. Shout out to James says Trump was punked by his boss, BB, Putin, and Ping. He is frightened, beaten man. Okay. Greetings, Maritza says hello and sends love. Shout out to JVB says Candace in Russia. I'm loving it. Greetings, Uri says I am not sure the Dumbocrats can overcome their ick factor. Greetings, Proud Mom says can't wait. Shout out to Lorez says hello, Sabby, Eric, Corey, and RB and fam. Did not know Candace went there. Something tells me she got more flack for this than Tucker Carlson visiting Russia. Yeah, that's what I've been seeing so far. Trump admitted his call with Netanyahu was real. Yeah, I think they're playing games. Shout out to Mr. Moto says, call me Candace. And greetings, Ken says, have the globalists taken over? Have they? Have they? I don't know. We're going to go ahead and dive in, ladies and gents, because I do want to make sure I'm on time for Jen and Peter when they get here. But so much to discuss, ladies and gents. Let's go ahead and give a shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Thank you guys so much for your support. Really do appreciate you around here, fam. If you are interested in being a Sabby patron, we have 5 categories. 5-0. Uh-oh. We have the ultimate, the Sabinators. There's Sabsters. They're pretty cool. And don't forget about the Sabbies, who are also not too shabby. And last but not least, we have members. All of their names are listed here, ladies and gents. And you can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen there on the ticker throughout the live stream. We also have some newbies we want to give shout outs to. Let's give it up for JF and Latifa Baluazi. That is an interesting name. Welcome and thank you all. Okay, so much to get into, ladies and gents. This is going to be an interesting show tonight. Let's go ahead and show you that thumbnail so you can see what we are discussing. We also have a bit of breaking news that we're going to break down with Jen and Peter about here. Tonight, we are discussing Candace Owens is in Russia and isn't just there hanging out. Candace Owens has had interviews in Russia. She's attended the St. Petersburg event, which is actually a really big international event that I'll get to when we get to that story. And people are melting down all over social media. It's already starting. They're calling her Putin puppet. It's all over the place. So we're going to get into that story there and some of the things that she said during the interviews that she had in Russia. So this is going to be really interesting. We're also going to discuss Donald Trump's connection to the Rothschild family. Oh. Donald Trump and Jared Kushner. Jared Kushner let something slip really recently in an interview in regards to the island that he wants to take over off the coast of Albania there. And they're linked to the Rothschilds. And I want to do a deep dive into that to show you why some of the things that are happening, right? So we like to follow the money, and all of this is connected to money. We're also going to discuss Ro Khanna. This just happened. Seemed to be the only one that was a part of the Congressional Armed Services Committee that had the balls to introduce an amendment to stop the U.S. military merger with Israel. And we're going to get into all of that. Like I said, guys, they're all captured. Most of them are. I think these people need to be replaced. It's absolutely insane. We're also going to discuss this story is a hard one for me because this is my old stomping ground, Columbia, South Carolina. If you have not heard about Rick Chow, this is the store owner of the Shell station in Columbia, South Carolina. He's the one that shot Cyrus in the back, a 14-year-old boy. He was just released because he was found not guilty. A lot of people are very upset about this, and I'm going to break it down for you because I think I think some of the blame is on the prosecution, and I'm going to show you other people, another lawyer who talks about what the prosecutors did wrong. Of course, last but not least, Jen Perelman and Peter from Revolutionary Change are going to be here. They have some things to say about what Debbie Wasserman Schultz is trying to do right now in Florida. And they're not feeling it. Jen Perelman, for those, if you're not aware, she ran against Debbie twice, and she knows all the tricks that Debbie has pulled and what she's trying to do. And I really do believe this might be the best chance we actually have of getting Debbie Wasserman Schultz out of Congress. She's very pro-Israel. She's, I was going to say, a staunch Zionist. She has no empathy for the Palestinian people. She supports the Israel greater expansion. And we've been calling for her to go for a long time, for quite a long time. So if you have not done so, ladies and gents, do me a solid. Smash that like button for me. And if you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share just like a Care Bear. Tonight's theme, again, ladies and gentlemen, is more than meets the eye. And I think you'll see that with this first story. We're going to start with the heavy story first. I don't like to end on a heavy note, so let's start with this one. There is a lot of uproar in Columbia, South Carolina right now. And this story hits close to home for me because that's my old stomping ground. Rick Chow, who is the owner of a Shell gas station on Park Lane Road in Columbia, South Carolina, he was just found not guilty after shooting and killing a 14-year-old boy. He shot him in the back. This story hits close to home because I lived right next to that Shell station. I've been to that Shell station multiple times. I'm very well familiar with the area. So I want to start off just by showing you the reaction in the courtroom when he was found not guilty. This is the angle. There's Richard Chow there. So this is the angle from the defense side of the courtroom.
G.K. Rick Chow as to the charge of murder, not guilty. Fine number 302, four-person, June the 1st, 2026. Madam Forelady, was this your verdict and the verdict of the entire jury?
Yes, ma'am, it was.
Thank
That's the defense angle. And here's the angle of the verdict being read from the prosecutor's side. So you'll see the family here.
you. Your verdict.
Yes, it is.
Number 2, was this your verdict? 257?
Yes.
Is this still your verdict?
Yes.
Number 63, was this your verdict? Is it still your verdict?
Yes.
Number 208, was this your verdict? 208, is it still your verdict?
Yeah. So I wanted you to see the reaction there from both sides. And I want to show you where this Shell station is located. Again, when this story first happened a couple of years ago, it gave me chills because I lived right here. This is the Shell station on Park Lane Road. And if we zoom in a little bit here, I'm just going to go in a little bit closer so you can see there's an apartment complex right next to this. It's called Greenbrier Apartments. And that's where I lived. I lived right next to that Shell gas station. And as you can see here, it's right on the corner. So as you are coming out of that apartment complex, it's the first gas station that you see. It's also, I think, the first gas station that you're going to see if you're coming off of the interstate. Long story short, that Shell station receives a lot of customers, a lot of traffic. So when I heard about this, it made me feel some kind of way. I haven't lived in Columbia, South Carolina for quite some time, but that was my home. That was my home when I was, graduating from the University of South Carolina, and that was my home for 5 years after that. And I lived right in that apartment complex. For those who are not familiar with the area, that area has changed. When I lived there, that area was about 50-50-ish, right? So it was about, I say like 46% Black, 46% white. There are multiple apartment complexes on Park Lane Road. So there's Greenbrier, there's Paces Run, like there's a lot of them there. It's a whole strip of them. And at that time when I lived there, it was about split. It was about, half and half. Asian Americans and Latino Americans were the smallest part of the population for the most part. Columbia and South Carolina in general is about half and half Black, half and half white. Right. So it's different than some other places that you may have lived or where you live now. And I've been to that gas station so many times. It's just, it's hard. It's hard when I heard about this story. I was talking to a friend of mine about this last night. She was telling me how much that neighborhood has now changed. So now the demographics have shifted drastically. Now that neighborhood, Northeast Columbia in particular, is about 69% Black. So there was a shift. And then I think I realized where the shift went. Later on, before I left South Carolina, they were really building up a town called Blythewood. And Blythewood it's nice. It's a pretty place, a town right outside of Columbia. They were really building it up. Blythewood, like the schools were nice and new and everything. And I think what happened is that for those who were more middle class, don't even have to be upper middle class, but those that were a little bit more middle class and had families, I think this is where they went. Because when you look at the demographics in Blythewood, South Carolina now, you'll see about 2,600 people are white, about 2,300 are Black. So again, it's about half and half. I think that's where some of the people went. And so it's changed. It's changed a lot. Like I said, I haven't lived there in a long time. But I think that's where the shift may have happened. So let's get to this video. So to set the stage for this, I need to tell you what happened. There was a 14-year-old boy named Cyrus. He walked into that Shell gas station that I just showed you. The owner of that gas station, Rick Chow, and we'll get a little bit more about him in a minute. He and his wife and his son were in the convenience store at that time. And they believed that Cyrus stole a bottle of water. So we have the video footage of what happened in the Shell gas station. There is no footage of what happened when Cyrus was shot. We do not have camera footage of that. So it's really, you're going by what the witnesses said they saw and what, the store owner said that he saw, because Cyrus is dead. So you can't hear his side of the story. So let's go into this video here of the gas station. So this is Cyrus walking into the gas station wearing the red hoodie. So I don't know if everyone heard what she said there. She was telling him to put his book bag down. So in some of these places now, like they tell you, if you come in with a book bag, you can't walk around in the store or the gas station with the book bag. So here's Cyrus with the red sweatshirt, and he puts the book bag down. So that's him walking towards the back of the store where the coolers are. This is him over here by the coolers. We're going to fast forward a little bit. Speed it up. So there's now a customer in the store right here. He's wearing a black shirt. He's at the register. So there are people inside the gas station when they confront him. So just keep in mind, it's not like it's just this video footage and it was just him. And so here is Cyrus over here. Now, pay attention. We'll get a little bit closer. This is the son right here behind the register. So the son works there too. Now you'll see here, it goes back to Cyrus and you can see he's grabbing, this must have been the water bottles. So it looks like he's grabbing a couple of water bottles, may or may not have put him in his hoodie. And you can see they're watching him right here. But then here's the interesting part. Because it'll zoom in a little bit more here. So she's asking him if he took the water. He said, I don't have any water bottles. There's another customer right here. And here comes the son coming from out behind the counter. Now, as someone who worked at a gas station and someone who also worked in retail, I'm going to tell you some of the things that went wrong right here. Number one, you never leave the register unattended. There's a guy right here paying for something or starting to pay for something, and he leaves the register. In fact, all of them leave. Watch this. They are now following him outside of the store. So see how all three of them left out of the gas station at that point in time, because the owner said he had problems with theft. But if they were really so worried about theft, why would you leave the register unattended? You never do that. So they all went out of the store and they follow him. So that's what they played inside of the courtroom. So they followed him out of the store. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. Here's the protocol that we were given when I worked at the gas station and when I worked in retail. If you see somebody steal something, a customer steals something, number one, there's a protocol that is in place that you were supposed to do. Number one, you're supposed to contact the authorities, and there are certain things in place that you can do that quietly, where they will not be alerted, the customer. You are never supposed to pursue them. You never confront them. You never pursue them. The moment they left that gas station and they went after him, you had to have known this was not going to go well. The reason why you don't pursue them is because you never know what they have on them. You never know if they have a weapon. You never know if they could take someone hostage while you're running after them. What they should have done at that time is they should have contacted the authorities. Now, would I have called the police over water? No, but you never chase after the people who is stealing something. You are not only putting yourself in danger, you're putting other people in danger. Now, let's get to what the son said when the police did arrive. This is after his dad killed him. Listen to this.
I thought he had pocketed like a water source, so we told him to take it out, and he just kept his hands in the pocket. So then after that, he started going out the door, and so we chased him. He threw stuff out at that corner right there, and then he was running back down this way, and then I caught up to him once, and then he kept going. He tripped right here, and then that's when I caught up to him, and where my dad is right there, I called up to him like right here, like staying right there. And then at the scene, I was like running next to him, and that's when he had like pulled out the gun. And then I yelled gun, and I like backed up, I like stopped. And that's when my dad like was yelling, stop, no, like drop it or something. And then that's when my dad, he didn't drop it. So then my dad shot. And then he dropped to the floor. He was like, you know, like holding his back or something.
Let's stop right there. So, ladies and gentlemen, something doesn't make sense because he said he was running. They chased after him over 130 yards, by the way. They chased after him. They said at one point he fell, and then I guess he got back up. He said he turned around and he pointed the gun towards me. So that's the son. The son is saying that Cyrus pointed the gun towards him. Okay. Let me ask you a question. If Cyrus pointed the gun towards the son, how did the father shoot Cyrus in the back? This is the question a lot of people have. Again, all this is over a bottle of water, but this ain't the first time. I'll get to that as well. How was he shot in the back if he was facing you and pointing the gun at you? So we're going to look into, because this is what was revealed in the case, because Mr. Chow has done this before. This is not the first time. He has chased after a customer that stole something or he believes stole something. Let's go through the list. In 2015, a woman alleged that allegedly left without paying for her merchandise. According to reports, Chow and the woman struggled outside. The woman allegedly threatened to shoot him. Chow fired about 6 shots at her vehicle as she drove away. No one was injured. Charges were not filed. That's another example of where he tried to take matter into his own hands instead of contacting the police. Here's another one. October 2018, a man allegedly concealed a can of oven cleaner. Reports state the man assaulted Chow during the confrontation. Chow shot him twice in the leg. Authorities declined to file charges. This is not the first time Mr. Chow has shot someone. This is what I wanted you to see this because I think this is important. And in 2023, the case here with Cyrus Belton. So I don't know, guys. My whole thing is like, it ain't worth it. It's not worth it. And apparently Mr. Chow thought that he was also police. Now let's get to the question about a 14-year-old having a gun, because the prosecution said, according also to the witnesses, that the gun fell out. The son was saying that he pointed the gun towards him, but according to some of the witnesses, they said, no, it fell out. The gun fell out of his pocket or his bag or whatever. And that's how Mr. Chow saw the gun. So they did question, listen to this, if he should have had a gun in the first place. Listen here.
What point would make it okay for somebody under the age of 15 to possess a firearm?
I wouldn't know.
Well, you do know. You just said it depends. So let the jury know, based upon the questions from the state and your answer, when is it okay for someone under the age of 14 or a child to have a gun?
I wouldn't know. Everybody had their own viewpoint of it. That's why I say it depends.
And I'm asking your viewpoint, based upon your testimony, based upon what you've offered to this jury, when is it okay?
Protection-wise, if you ask me.
Go on, please. I did ask you.
That's it.
What do you mean protection-wise?
Depending on the area you grew up in or the areas you stay in, maybe.
And so when the state of South Carolina put you on the stand, they understood that you felt it was okay to break the law for protection.
Objection to the question.
That lawyer there represented Rick Chow. And here's the other thing. Hold on to yourself for this one. Yes, Rick Chow had a black lawyer. Ta-da! Interesting how that happened, right? So then this is the defense here. I want to bring this in. This is Rick Chow's defense team again here. Just listen to some of these.
The gun at Andy Chow. Andy yelled out, "He's got a gun." Mr. Chow told him, "Drop it. Mr. Chow is coming up." Pulls his gun down. At that moment, at that split second, that frozen moment in time, Rick Chow sees a young man pointing a semi-automatic pistol at his son, who's backing up with his hands up, and Rick Chow fires his gun to protect his son.
But again, it's Rick's words against Cyrus's words, and Cyrus is dead. There's no video footage to show you what happened when Cyrus was shot. So let me continue this part here, because I want you to hear what this guy says here.
This will show that after they chased him out of his chute, dropping phones down Springtree Road, after he tripped over a curb, fell, dropped his backpack, we believe that gun spilled out of that pocket. And within moments after that gun spilled out of that pocket, that man shot Cyrus Carmack Belton in the back with a .45 caliber pistol.
Like I said, and because people are asking, and I already saw someone ask this question about the jury, has there been any statements from the jurors? Not yet that I have seen, because people are asking, how could the jury rule this way? Part of the problem here is, again, to me, the son is saying that he turned around and he pointed the gun towards me. So if that's the case, how was he shot in the back? And if his back was turned away, that means his back would have been turned away from you. That means he wasn't facing you. So let's go on here, because it gets crazier. Here's the son. So I want you to hear what the son says, because it turns out he actually didn't steal anything. Listen to this.
2023, does a bottle of water cost at 7441 Park Lane Road in Richland County at the Shell gas station operated by the Chow family? How much does one bottle of water cost?
I'm not sure.
Okay, 98 cents, sound about right?
Yes,
Let's
sir.
just round it up to $1. Dollar sound right?
Yes, sir.
Think you took $1 worth of merchandise from the store,
I did think that, yes, sir.
and you were certain of it.
I believed he had taken it, yes, sir.
You strongly believed enough where you left your counter, you left the cash register and ran after it, correct?
Yes, sir.
But you were wrong.
Afterwards, I did learn he did not take it.
Did you hear what he said? After he realized, after Cyrus was shot, he realized he didn't take the water. Never had it. And another one here with the son.
Nobody made him leave the Shell gas station that day, right?
No, to my knowledge, no, sir.
He did it on his own, with his own free will, correct?
Yes, sir.
The shooting doesn't happen if everybody stays in the Shell gas station that day, correct?
Everyone? Yes, sir.
It doesn't happen, correct?
Yes, sir.
I'm correct in saying that, is what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
Shooting doesn't happen if everybody stays put in the Shell gas station, correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Anything else briefly?
It doesn't happen if Cyrus doesn't put a gun on you either, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. No further questions.
Anything else to say?
You don't even know there's a gun if you stay in the gas station!
That's
Right?
Your Honor.
You don't know he's got a gun if you stay.
So you guys can see how heated this got. So the prosecution said, if you stay in the gas station, no one gets shot, right? The defense came back and said, if he doesn't have a gun, no one gets shot, right? And then that was the prosecutor saying, you don't know he has a gun if you would have stayed in the gas station. And if they were so concerned about theft, why did they leave that store? There was still, did you guys notice there was a customer still in the store when they left? Let's go to this next part here, because I think this lawyer did a really good job explaining this. He explains why the jury voted the way that they did. And ladies and gentlemen, I feel like part of this is on the prosecution. Listen to what he says here.
Opening statements, one of the vast contrasts that I saw between the prosecution and the defense, where I believe the prosecutors dropped the ball, is they didn't really do much to humanize the victim in the case. And I remember listening to both opening statements. And while the prosecutor, the solicitor, did mention he was 14 years old, that was kind of it. Had I been prosecuting that case, I would have talked about not only his age, but where he went to school, hey, what he liked to do for fun, what video games he liked. I would have wanted to bring him to life so the jurors could have some image of this young man, this life in their mind, and they just didn't do that. Another something I would have done differently if I was a prosecutor, and I don't think that they really leaned into the fact that this teen was hunted. They talked about him being chased out of the store about a bottle of water. That was kind of their big theme. They kind of hung everything on that, all about a bottle of water. This teen was hunted. Mm-hmm. I mean, 130 yards. And I remember when, in opening statements, when they talked about that, one thing I thought was great was he described that it was that 130 yards would be the equivalent of a football field, goalpost to goalpost. Had I given that opening statement, I would have had that picture up there. I would have had a visual picture of a football field from goalpost to goalpost so the jury could see how far they hunted. These two grown men hunted this 14-year-old. And I would have
130 yards. That's how far that's how badly they wanted to get this water bottle back that didn't even exist.
use that word. I wouldn't have said chase. I would have said hunted. That's how I would have really portrayed this, and which I think is accurate, quite frankly. Now, on the flip side, the defense, in their opening statement, they talked about the defendant's credentials and how he came to America and how he built his business and his family. They gave the jury all this information to humanize this person. So, I mean, big difference. I think that made a big difference in the jury's mind because they can identify with one side more than the other.
They did not humanize Cyrus. This is very important. This is someone that had no priors. They never been in trouble before. All they kept saying was he was a 14-year-old boy. You hear what that lawyer just said? By the way, I saw this whole video. That lawyer also knew the other lawyers that were in the courtroom. He also knew the judge. And he was saying he could not believe they never humanized him. That's one part. The other part, he said, instead of saying they chased after him for 130 yards, he said, I would have used the word hunted. They hunted him. And I got to add something else. In South Carolina, in order to convict someone, I guess, of murder, you're supposed to prove that there was malice. And from what I read and from what I saw, the prosecution did not do a good job of proving that there was malice. The other thing is the charge. Now, this is where it gets kind of tricky because they were trying to go for first-degree murder. I had a feeling that wasn't going to work out. But at the other hand, if they would have went for manslaughter, then people would have said, what are you doing? That's not enough. So the prosecutors did not do a good, you can watch this whole trial on YouTube. The prosecutors did not do a good job of convincing the jury that Rick Chow and his son had malice. But the first step of that was humanizing Cyrus, which they did not do. Another thing he mentions here, let's go on a little bit more.
And, something else that I would have done different when it came to the issue of whether or not the young man actually had the gun or pointed the gun, I would have used a strategy that I call legal judo. Judo was a martial art where you use your opponent's weight and strength against him. And, the defense was always, he pointed the gun, he had the gun, he pulled the gun out. And, the prosecutors, I think for the most part, they tried to argue that he didn't. I would have taken a different position. I would have said, yeah, he did pull a gun out. You know why? Because these two grown men were hunting him and he couldn't get away from them. And he was justified in doing so, and kind of taking away that argument. And I think most people could understand, well, yeah, you got these two grown men chasing him. He's trying to get away. He's falling down. They won't let up. He didn't do anything wrong. He's seeing what's happened to people. Hey, I would have pulled the gun out too to defend myself. So I would have leaned into that a lot more if I was the prosecutor, instead of trying to argue it didn't happen. So, but those are some of the things that kind of stuck out in my mind as being significant in this case.
And speaking of,
and it sounds like he should have been the lawyer. He should have been the one. But he never stole the water. Even the son admitted that. They realized that after they killed him. He never stole the water. This is why, and let me bring up this part here, because here's the guy who represented Rick Chow. This guy right here. Let's go back. His name is Sean C. Kent. He even made sure to get a black lawyer to represent him. They even made sure of that. And he took the case and did it. So I just keep thinking about how this could have been very differently. Just very differently. But Rick Chow had a history of doing this. That's why it's important that you look at that record. He had a record of going after customers that he believed were stealing or he saw stealing. He had a record. He had a tendency of doing that. Cyrus didn't have a record. But I'll tell you right now, there's a number of protests that are happening outside that Shell station. I still have friends there, like in Colombia. I still have family there, and it is not looking good. I'll tell you right now, the best thing Rick Chow can do is get out of that neighborhood, because you are not going to be able to operate that Shell gas station with everybody knowing what you did. And they had the video footage. They see you chase this kid. Like at that point, he left the store and he was walking. He wasn't running. They come chasing after him because he was determined to make him pay for something that he actually didn't do. And he had done it multiple times before. If you're that worried about theft, and because I told you about the neighborhood now, if you're that worried about theft and you feel as though you don't trust people coming into your store, don't be there. Don't be there. It's that simple. This is crazy. Like I said, this one hit really home. It hit home. And some people said, well, people should boycott. I've been saying this for years. But I bet you people still will go and support that business. And that's part of the problem. Think about that. Let's go to the next story here before I know Jen and Peter are going to get here pretty soon. So let's go to that. Okay. All right, ladies and gents, if you have not done so, do me a solid and smash that like button. Thank you. So I wanted to do the heavy story first, and now we're going to get to something pretty interesting. Jared Kushner said in an interview recently that he has a little buddy that you guys need to know about. Now, if you haven't been keeping up with this, Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump, they have decided to basically steal wetlands off the coast of Albania. They're going to make it like their own little private island, build a bunch of luxury resorts there. And the people in Albania are against it. but the prime minister of Albania supports it because there's a lot of corruption there with him and within that government. But since making that decision, he said something in an interview that kind of made me say we need to look into his relationship and Trump's relationship with the Rothschilds. And that's what we're going to do. Listen to this.
I was on a vacation after we left government in the summer of 2021. We were on our friend Nat Rothschild's boat. We got picked up in Montenegro, and then we started sailing over to Corfu. And we spent a couple days in Albania. One of the nights there, Prime Minister Rama came to the boat. I had not met him when I was in government, but I was very, very impressed with his vision for what he wanted to do with Albania. I really didn't know anything about the country.
You heard what boat he was on? His friend Nat Rothschild's boat. So let me let him finish.
Understand the history and the darkness of the history with the communism and the terrible leadership actually led to it being fully undeveloped as a nation. But Eddie came in, he has one of the cool things I was attracted to is the fact that he seemed like a very skilled politician, as a very strong and smart leader, but also the fact that he was an artist. I thought it'd be very cool to see what a country really led and built by an artist could be, somebody with a...
Also, there is no communism in Albania. See how they just lie?
Amazing taste and great creativity. And so I was just intrigued by it. And then before we went to Corfu, we stopped in Butrent, which was also a spectacular site, and just really felt to me like it showed the potential of the country. So much amazing beauty, the water, we did a lot of swimming, a lot of hiking. The country just had incredible natural beauty, but it seemed like a place that nobody knew or understood. And so didn't think much about it for about a year. And then about a year later, we started looking at opportunities in the Balkans. And the partner who's leading that effort, I said, you know what, let's go down to Albania. I had such a good experience there. Go check it out, see if there's something there. And we were immediately drawn to where they were building an airport in Vlore. And obviously a country is going to build an airport by the coast in the place that they think is the most beautiful. So we went there, we looked for opportunities, and we were able to find some incredible opportunities. So this really came from obviously a passion, and it came from the desire to build something that I think could be truly unique in the world.
So let's take a look at that friend of his, Nate Rothschild. Let's take a look at him, okay? This is the guy he's referring to. A billionaire Rothschild heir owns an Explorer super yacht so cool that it was featured in Christopher Nolan's blockbuster. Now he is selling it for $87 million. So this is Nate Rothschild. Let's fast forward here a little bit. That's his yacht that they're referring to. This is how rich these people are, man. This is wild shit. So let's get to his little picture here. This is Nathaniel Rothschild. That's him with his wife there. Nathaniel is the owner of the super yacht Planet 9. So he's 52 years old. Make this bigger for you guys. It's small back there. He's 52 years old. He's a British-born financier and a prominent member of the well-known Rothschild. He is a billionaire with a personal net worth of approximately $1 billion. He is hailing from a wealthy and influential family. Nat Rothschild, as he is commonly called, was educated at some of the world's most prestigious institutions. So call it Court, Eton, Oxford, etc. He currently serves as the executive chairman and chief executive officer of Volex PLC, a UK-listed manufacturer. Additionally, he has founded several investment firms such as Atura Capital, Valor Ltd, and Janelle Energy PLC. So this is Jared Kushner's buddy. And so I started thinking about something, and I said, let's see this connection here with the Rothschilds. Okay, so let me actually go to this one first. With Donald Trump, we'll fast forward this way. There we go. Let's see how Trump is connected to all of this, because all these people roll together. Let's go back. Getting Donald Trump out of debt, the 25-year-old ties that bind Trump and Wilbur Ross. So let's go into this a little bit more. Okay. Trump made a bold bet on Atlantic City when he opened a third casino there, the colossal Taj Mahal. That was in April of 1999. Even riskier, he financed the project with $675 million in junk bonds at a 14% interest rate. Within months, Trump was struggling to make the massive bond payments as Atlantic City floundered. So I guess like at some point back in the day, Atlantic City used to be booming. And then as time went by, as Vegas became more of the rage, and Atlantic City is not, I guess, what it used to be. In stepped Ross. Then he was the head of the Rothschild Inc. bankruptcy advising team. Listen to this now. He was supposed to represent bondholders who were pondering forcing the casino into involuntary bankruptcy and ousting Donald Trump. Now, Trump reportedly saw crowds pressed against reportedly saw crowds pressed against Trump's limo window to get a peek at the mogul and realized the value of Trump's celebrity. He struck a pre-packaged bankruptcy deal. Trump would give up 50% of his stake in Taj Mahal, but would receive better debt terms and would remain in control. The Donald was back in business. He ultimately made similar deals for his other troubled properties and climbed out of debt and back into Forbes 400. Ross went into private equity in 2000. He was forming W.L. Ross & Co. He still runs it, but he sold it to investment firm Invesco in 2006 for some $375 million. Get this now. In 2013, Invesco partnered with Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, and others to buy 5 industrial properties from the Jehovah's Witnesses in Brooklyn for $240 million. So a guy who worked for the Rothschilds at that time basically bailed out Donald Trump. He prevented him from going into bankruptcy. Then that same guy decided to eventually leave the Rothschild Inc. and he decided to start his own company, L.W. Ross & Co. And then he sold that to an investment firm called Invesco. And that firm ended up partnering with Jared Kushner. Now, we know Jared Kushner is involved with private equity. You guys know I've talked about how dangerous private equity is, how it really harms the everyday working person. And there seems to be some limitations that may be happening to be put on private equity, but not enough. And that's really one of our big enemies is private equity. They can just come in and they can take these homes, etc. Jared Kushner is a part of all of that. So now, instead of just Donald Trump having that relationship with that Rothschild connection, Jared Kushner also has that Rothschild connection. Now, follow me here because we're going to go to the next part. This will all make sense in just a second. Nearly all of Trump's wealth is tied up in real estate, but he also owned stocks. One holding, according to May 2016 filing, $250,000 to $500,000 worth of Invesco European Growth Fund Class Y shares. Again, same company, Invesco. Trump and Ross are also neighbors in both Florida and New York. Not only is Ross' 16,000 square foot home just up the road from Trump's 126 room Mar-a-Lago club in Palm Beach, but the two also share a 57th Street address in Manhattan. Ross's penthouse is just 2 blocks from Trump's tower triplex. Now, check this part out because it gets a little crazier, right? For those seeking influence in Washington, the president's cabinet is the highest echelon. While concerns about potential conflicts of interest mount, one person who will have the commander-in-chief's ear is his billionaire pal, Ross. And he did. Because, as we go on here, let's look at that company a little bit, that Rothschild and Company, headquartered in Zurich, Switzerland. Let's look at what they do. Rothschild and Co., SCA engages in banking and private equity business. All of this is connected. So Rothschild and Co. also is a part of private equity. Jared Kushner, Ross. The firm offers mergers and acquisition strategy and financing advice, as well as investment and wealth management solutions to institutions, families, individuals, and governments. That's what this company does. So see, they're part of private equity as well. Let's go on to the next one. Look at this. Look at the shareholding structure. Now, this is on their website, Rothschild and Co. Rothschild and Co. is owned by members of the Rothschild family, alongside the senior partners of the group and a group of like-minded investors who are closely aligned to the group's values and long-term approach. You can even see their little structure chart here. I mean, they got all this up here, right? Rothschild family. You see how they maintain the ownership throughout? They have shareholders. The shareholders are also Rothschild and Co. Like, they're still there. They're still present. And why is this important? One of the ways that the Rothschilds were able to continue to grow their wealth exponentially is because that they early on married within the family. So one Rothschild may marry a cousin or another cousin here and there. And it's gross, I know, but that's what they did. So that way that wealth would not be split between another family. That's how they were able to hold on to so much wealth. They intermarried and kept all this money under the Rothschild name. And they go on to become a European banking dynasty. They went on to do other things. Now, when you look at all of this, notice how they keep the majority. They have shareholders, but notice how they don't really let anybody else come in a way that they can try to get their hands on their wealth. When we look a little bit deeper at Wilbur Ross, he was a bankruptcy expert. This is from Investopedia. Bankruptcy expert and former Commerce Secretary. So now you have the guy who bailed out Donald Trump, who was working for the Rothschild, and he gets him out. And because he gets him out of bankruptcy, of course, Donald Trump did reward him. Wilbur Ross, he was born 1937. He was the 39th U.S. Secretary of Commerce, billionaire business tycoon and investor who's, despite his wealth, is known as the king of bankruptcy. This is the guy that you call to get you out of that tough jam. For 25 years, he worked as a bankruptcy restructuring advisor for Rothschild Investments. So he was with the Rothschild family for 25 years. Then he later went on to serve as U.S. Commerce Secretary under Donald Trump. Keeping it in the circle, Donald Trump's reward to Ross was to then bring him on as a part of his administration. You got me out of bankruptcy. You saved me. You protect me. You scratch my back, and now I'm going to scratch yours. Now follow me here. Because let's all go back to the Rothschilds, right? This was Jacob Rothschild, and I want you to see here what he said about his family and how they created Israel. This is all connected to what Jared Kushner just revealed the other day, to the Abraham Accords. Listen to this.
In modern Jewish history, and it begins with 3 words. Dear Lord Rothschild.
Dear Lord Rothschild, I have much pleasure in conveying to you, on behalf of His Majesty's government, the following declaration of sympathy with Jewish Zionist aspirations, which has been submitted to and approved by the Cabinet.
Why was it that this letter was sent by the Foreign Secretary to your great-uncle Walter?
It's an interesting question because it was primarily a movement from Eastern Europe, but they didn't clarify who was in charge of that movement.
The movement came from where? From Eastern Europe.
And in addition, it was, after all, in Great Britain. So they felt that the Rothschild family should be the one to whom it was addressed.
But they felt that the Rothschild family, it should be addressed to them because they had the money. We're talking about the biggest European dynasty. So this is where we follow the money, folks. They had the money. You can't just go create an Israel without money. And the Rothschild had the money, and they also had political connections. That's why they went to them. We continue on.
And Walter was Lord Rothschild, and he was a Zionist. And those really are the background reasons.
So Walter received the Balfour Declaration, and I have a copy here. And I wonder if I could possibly ask you to read it for us.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. I'm going to put on my spectacles to make sure I read it accurately. His Majesty's government view with favour the establishment of Palestine as a national home for the Jewish people, and will use their best endeavours to facilitate the achievement of this object.
Notice that in this letter it says the establishment in Palestine, but today a lot of Zionists will tell you that Palestine never existed.
It being clearly understood that nothing shall be done which may prejudice the civil and religious rights of existing non-Jewish communities in Palestine, or the rights and political status enjoyed by Jews in any other country. I should be grateful if you would bring this declaration to the knowledge of the Zionist Federation.
And that's what they did. So the Rothschild family was the vehicle to get that going, and also they had the money. So that's how all that started. That's how Israel was created. And that's important because of what Jared Kushner just said. He is now trying to tell these other countries, listen to this, about the Abraham Accords, because I believe that all of this is connected.
And to promote the Abraham Accords to, make the ones that are existing stick, and then also to find new opportunities. So I have a partner, my partner Asher, who I mentioned before. He's actually of Moroccan descent and actually of Syrian descent. So we've been looking, maybe there's some opportunities to bring investment to Morocco, a country that I know you're very proud of, to really help them create dividends from the Abraham Accords. And so to show the people there that there can be great rewards, because leaders who join the Abraham Accords, it shows that they're thinking about the future, they're pushing for stability. It shows a lot of wisdom and a lot of forward thinking. So those are the environments where I think investors would want to be in. And I have a lot of American investors who are very who love the Abraham Accords, who want to join us in that. So we're looking at opportunities to invest in countries who have joined the Abraham Accords, but we're also looking at opportunities to invest in countries that might join the Abraham Accords and to create economic packages to incentivize them. So another one of my partners is Syrian, and he said, Jared, we should put together a big investment package maybe for Syria, so that if they join the Abraham Accords, they could have a big incentive to do it.
Instead of calling it an investment package, we're going to call it what it really is, which is a bribe. They're trying to bribe some of these other countries in the Middle East to join the Abraham Accords. That's what they're doing.
Amazing would it be to have, a Muslim and Jewish firm working, Jewish partners, with American, working together to try to bring investment there. So something we're looking at. Obviously, there are some complications, but I think there's a ton of potential there. And if they were to join the Abraham Accords, I think that there's a lot of people who would want to invest there to help give them the best chance to achieve their full potential.
So, you see, Jared was talking a lot, so he revealed some things. We know that he's buddy with the Rothschild family. I just showed you that Donald Trump has had a relationship with that family also for quite some time, at least. He brings up the Abraham Accords. Donald Trump just brought up the Abraham Accords about a week and a half ago. So here's what I believe is happening here, guys. I believe that some of what Donald Trump is doing is not just for Benjamin Netanyahu. I believe some of this is for the Rothschild family because they bailed his ass out. Because people may not know all of this, but like when you read about Donald Trump's business dealings, like, yes, people know him as like this successful businessman, but Donald Trump had some losses business-wise along the way too. And he had some issues with, oh, I'm supposed to pay all these taxes and I didn't pay him. I remember that. He went to court like back in the day and Roy Cohen represented him and got him out of paying those taxes that he owed, business taxes. So they all work together. They all help each other because they're all a part of the same class. The Rothschild family, we know, supports the state of Israel. We know that they are staunch Zionists. Donald Trump is the president of the United States. He has a debt that he needed to pay back apparently to them and to Ross, and I guess part of his payback to Ross was by making him a part of his administration. But honestly, it's like, I just don't see the Rothschild family like coming to your aid and coming to help you and not expecting something in return. We're talking about a banking dynasty. These aren't the kind of people that just wake up one day and become your friends just because they think you're nice or because they like you. You got to be in the club first. And Donald Trump is. Connect all that to the Abraham Accords. What you really have is a Zionist plan that is going to do everything that it can to make Israel more powerful, more successful, although their economy has tanked quite a bit. But all the center is going to be around making Israel better. Those Abraham Accords don't promise a Palestinian state. That's not even a part of that. The Abraham Accords is basically there to uplift Israel. What they are doing is they're bribing these other Gulf states in that region, and they're saying, well, you'll be able to make a lot of money too. But at the expense of what, though? And all that's going to go to build up Israel. This private island that Jared Kushner apparently wants now off the coast of Albania. Why do they need another private island? How'd that go for the last guy? And from what I read too, they're supposed to have tunnels on that island. Why do they need tunnels? These people are scary. They're a different type of scary. They're not scary because they can probably beat you up or something. They're scary because their power comes from their wealth and the resources that they have. I believe that there's more than meets the eye. I don't think this was just about an investment opportunity off the coast of Albania and we said, hey, we can make some money and build some resorts here. I think there's more to this. And I think that Donald Trump is just very much embedded in this world. And when a family like the Rothschilds, they come and they bail you out like that, I don't think that's something you just walk away from so easily. And there's no telling if there's other debts that he still needs to pay. So, I tell people this. A lot of times when we talk about the billionaires and we criticize the billionaires, I feel like the people who are always in the spotlight is like Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk. Elon Musk is actually on his way to becoming a trillionaire, if you can believe it. I feel like they're the easy targets. Bill Gates, like they're the well-known ones. But if you notice, a lot of time you do not hear people mention the Rothschild family with all the wealth that they have, that they kept in the family. Even when Bernie was complaining about the billionaires and he was calling out the Walton family, he called them out by name, and Jeff Bezos, you never heard Bernie mention the Rothschild family. This is the family that's just supposed to, I guess, go under the radar for whatever reason. It's something that I've noticed, and it's I tell you, man, like I said, they got a lot of money and they got a lot of power. And I think all of this is connected. I don't think that the project, the Kushner real estate project in Gaza, this new one that's coming up in Albania, the seizing of the land in Lebanon, I feel like the Rothschilds are behind all of this as well. Because to the point that Eric, my producer, continued to make, and this is a good point, none of this is done without money. You have to have money to do these things. And I think they part of all of it. I really do. I think maybe we need to look a little bit at the tippity top, because you don't see or hear from them much. And those are the ones I think you really have to be the most concerned about. Not necessarily the people that are always in the spotlight, like Elon and like Jeff Bezos, but I'm talking about the billionaires that you usually don't see giving interviews and you don't see in the spotlight. And I feel like this is all a part of that Zionist project that they all want. And I guess to usher everybody into this end time prophecy. And if you're watching and you're a Christian and you have read the Bible, then you know that even the Bible tells you that no man knows what time, what day, what hour that is going to be. So keep that all in mind, ladies and gents. And I'm telling you, all these people are connected, and I think they all have one common goal. Let's go to some of these super chats, ladies and gents. Hey. Thank you, Mark. Sab, they can miss me with all that anti-Russia bull. Thank you, VS. Hey, Sabby. Hello. Thank you, The Traveler. I don't think the father was the one who shot Cyrus. I think it was the son that shot Cyrus. Ooh, that is an interesting observation there, The Traveler. You might have something with that. Thank you, Maria. Sabby, do dissidents completely rode this story off? Rode it off? Rode? Thank you, Ira. The father is like late 50s. Do you really think he ran down a 14-year-old over 130 yards away? I think the son shot him. Interesting. Thank you, Dust. This is why I still won't let my son walk around at night and he's 17. Thanks, Sean. Came for Rev change and look forward to the appearance later. Also, Richard should never be able to work another job after getting away with murder. Thank you, Davu. But there's an anti-Asian hate crime bill to protect Rick against retaliation. Go figure. Thank you, Roger, who's been a member for 35 months. If you rear end someone according to insurance, that's automatically your fault. Apply the same for bull in the back. Mandatory minimum 15 years, civilian or cop. Thank you, With Our Eyes. Consciousness, peace, Uhuru Sabs. Say no to nuclear war and say yes to peace with us here at Green Lovers Dream. Also in 2018, we paid to name Chink Studio iPad Green Lovers Dream, yet to be revealed. Peace be to you, Rise. Interesting. Thank you, Measured Man. In my opinion, he defaulted first, so he had to offer up Ivanka first to partially satisfy the debt. She got Trump to convert. She is the brain behind all of this, in my opinion. It's deep. You know, we have to talk about that sometime, Measured Man. Thank you, Roger. Vegas didn't pull from AC. Atlantic City pulled people from Vegas. It was surrounding Northeast states that pulled people from Atlantic City when they got their casinos. Interesting. Thanks, Kinman. What kind of name is Wilbur for a human? I don't know, Kinman. Thank you, Roger. Biggest enemy to RC are public banks at every level of government. And thank you, Marlon. Gabby, you just decoded Trump's puppet strings. I think so, baby. All right, I think Jen is here. Okay. Jen, whenever you are ready, give me a thumbs up and I'll go ahead and bring you in. You ready? Okay. All right, ladies and gents. It's been a minute, but we got to bring Jen back to the show. Jen Perelman, she is one of the co-hosts of Revolutionary Change. She also ran for Congress against Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Welcome back.
Hello. Hi, how are you? Hi. Peter will be here in a minute. He needed, Peter needs to get a snack.
Okay.
Yeah, you know how like boys are like that. Like I've been sitting here for the same amount of time, but he needs to go get his snack. So he will be here. But how are you?
I am good. And here's Peter.
There he is.
Peter, did you get your snack?
Absolutely not. I can't keep my public waiting. I have to be here. So.
He wants a snack.
You see, this is the thing about working with somebody as long as I've worked with her. We're like siblings now. So the whole story has to come out. It's like, oh, he's getting a snack. He's got to charge up first. Surprised he didn't say he's in the can for 10 minutes. He'll be back.
I wouldn't do that.
Well, I want to start with this because for those who are not aware, the NDAA resolution, you guys know we've been talking about that for quite some time. This was brought forward. Let me go ahead and bring this up. It was introduced. The House Armed Services Committee, they rejected Ro Khanna's amendment. So this is the legislation that we were talking about that is trying to tie the U.S. military to Israel. And so Ro Khanna is a part of this committee, and I want to show everybody what he said. So first of all, thank you to Ro Khanna for saying the right thing. Let's go ahead and play this.
Mr. Chairman, the American people are tired of the arrogance and insolence of Prime Minister Netanyahu telling America what we should do. The entire country of Israel has a GDP that is less than a single town in my district. Yet somehow Netanyahu thinks he could tell the American people what we should do. The person who's most upset with him right now is President Donald Trump. And everyone in America, whether you're a Republican, an independent, or a Democrat, says that we need to tell Netanyahu that America calls the shots, not the prime minister of any other country. They want less cooperation and blank checks to Israel, not more. Only the United States Congress would dream up at this moment, let's actually do more for Israel, not less. And that's what Section 2024 does. It's a pretty simple thing. Should we do more for Israel than we already do, or should we do less? If you think we should do more for Israel, you should be against my amendment. If you think we should do less for Israel at the time that he's arrogantly telling Donald Trump what to do, then you should be for my amendment. Now, let me just be clear. Mr. Netanyahu actually wrote to a member of Congress to put this Section 224 into the bill. He says, I know that aid is unpopular in America. I know that even Republicans don't want aid. So here's what you got to do. Quote, let's create a new framework. This is Netanyahu telling us what we should do. A new framework of joint defense cooperation, co-development, co-production, and mutual investment in areas including advanced missile defense, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and next-generation military platforms. Why? Because he doesn't want Congress to vote on the aid. He just wants it fused in the bill. Last I checked, Netanyahu doesn't have a seat on this committee, Mr. Chairman. We need to reject an amendment which his language is coming directly from the Israeli prime minister. And we ought to have any aid have a vote of the American people. I am for Team America. I am for the interests of this country. And I believe that when Donald Trump ran, he ran America first. That includes American interests against any foreign country. We should have American sovereignty and make it clear that we strike 224. If we want to give aid to Israel, if we want to sell them weapons, that should be a vote for the entire Congress.
Jen and Peter, your thoughts on this? I don't know if you guys know how this went, but they rejected Ro Khanna's amendment. I'll show you guys. Sarah Jacobs was, Congresswoman Jacobs was one of the only ones that supported what Ro Khanna was doing. I want to get your thoughts on this, Jen and Peter.
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that they wouldn't support that. But Peter and I were talking about this earlier today, and I might get hate. I don't know, but I feel like we're already there. I honestly do not know how much of a difference. It's sort of like, you know what it is? And I said to Peter, this would be like Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell getting married, right? Yeah. Like they've been together for years. They live together. They have a kid together. We're going to make it official. So I just don't know that it matters anymore because I feel like we're so rogue. You know, you've got everybody, like nobody's following rules. Congress isn't even in charge over the war powers. Like this is insanity. So, you know, I guess I feel like what's that mean at this point?
Yeah, we've come to the conclusion that whatever they can pass right now on behalf of Israel, whether under the cover of night or out in front, they're going to do it because they know that they can't take it to the people. People don't want this. They don't want any of it. But the powers that be, which we covered at length on our stream tonight regarding what Kushner and Ivanka are trying to do in Albania. It's like the rules just don't apply to the people who perceive themselves as the rulers of the world. And to Ro's credit, because he said this a few years ago, if you remember, he's like, I'm one of the 535 most powerful people on this planet. And I think sometimes there's a lot of people in these chambers who forget that that is the case. So you have to have a certain level of awareness that what you're doing has real world consequences. And that's why Roe, who is independently wealthy, we can obviously talk about the fact that he does some insider trading, but the point is, he's not somebody who needed Congress like Massey to make his money. He's very intelligent. He clearly has his ish together. But unfortunately, he's an anomaly on Capitol Hill. Most people are not like that. He really stands out above the rest. And unfortunately, he's standing on an island. And credit to Sarah Jacobs for backing him up. But this was like universally approved of in Congress. The Democrats and the Republicans both went along with it. And the biggest reason they went along with it is because they're all bought and paid for by the Israel entity.
You know, Joe Firestone, he said this a couple years ago, and maybe I need to reach back out to him. He was trying to put this thing together to dump the incumbents, and he said all of them. He said on the Republican side and on the Democrat side, he said we need to start with a fresh slate, because he said they're all corrupt. It's impacted like all of them. I haven't seen Ro Khanna get as angry as he has been this year.
Yeah.
I appreciate Ro. You know, he's actually one of the people, we've had him on before, you know, and not a lot of Congress people, especially after running against Debbie, were willing to like cross-pollinate with us. And he was kind enough to come on. So I always, you know, appreciated that. And I think that he's a decent guy. Like, I don't really think he's like nefarious, but he's one person. And I also think that it's convenient when those things happen, when you know it's not going to pass. And I'm not accusing him of purposefully doing that, but I do think we see this a lot where people are willing to put their name on something because they know it's not going to go anywhere. And then that I always find it very performative in a lot of these cases. And I don't find him particularly like bad. I don't. But it's not going to go anywhere. And at the end of the day, what do you think? Do you think it makes a difference in terms of what like being in, you know, cahoots with them anyway?
What I was reading about it that was concerning is just, it seems as though so instead of us saying we're going to send weapons to Israel, and Colonel Larry Wilkerson explained this a lot better than I can earlier today. But Colonel Wilkerson was saying, he was like, yeah, you would essentially be one.
Right.
That he said and he said, this is treason.
Yes. But we've crossed over. I feel like we have crossed over to that. And by we, I mean the people in the administration. And by the way, several administrations continuously, in terms of our interaction with the Zio state. We have crossed over into what is treasonous to me. To me, when I see somebody like Brian Mast wearing an IOF uniform to Congress, that strikes that to me, you know? And so we've been seeing this for long and night, and apparently it's been acceptable. So now this is normal. This is now where we're at, where that's just a normal thing. So, I mean, I don't know why anybody would be surprised by it.
Once you lose faith in the system, you will not get it back. When you have the overwhelming majority of our federally elected officials trading on inside information and have been doing it for many years now, and now you have Trump taking it to such an insane level, and everyone's thinking, okay, this is way too much. Well, why wasn't it way too much when Wasserman Schultz was the top insider trader 2 of the last 3 congressional cycles? Why does former Speaker Pelosi have a stock ticker specifically so that people can follow how they're trading? No one did anything. Now, all of a sudden, you know, Trump is the big offensive person. I'm totally persecuted. They're just coming after me, and I'm really a victim here. And that's it. But it works for him. It works for him because everyone's looking around saying Trump is merely a symptom of this broken system. That's what it is. He's taking full advantage of it, and he and his family are going to get filthy rich. And because of what the Bidens did at the end of their term, they have now set the precedent where everybody's looking around saying, how were they able to get away with this? Because he is the leader of the free world as of right now. And before he steps out of that office on January 20th, 2029, he's going to pardon his entire family and everybody that's involved in this. And they're going to roll it back as many years as they have to make sure that everything is accounted for. You bought into this, you get what you pay for. You told us that we couldn't have Bernie Sanders in 2016, where maybe that could have created some legitimate change. That wouldn't have changed the inevitable, but it would have slowed it down and we would have been able to catch up. But now, forget it. This is revolution or nothing. I mean, at this point, that's where we're at.
I agree with you. I want to show people that letter in case you guys have not seen it. This letter came from Benjamin Netanyahu, and it was addressed to Congressman Stutzman. So I just want to show you guys how deep this goes. It says here, I was glad to receive your proposed congressional resolution endorsing my plan to shift the framework for U.S.-Israel defense cooperation from aid to a partnership. So it was Benjamin Netanyahu's plan. And then the highlighted part here, I am heartened by your enthusiastic support for our plan to develop a new memorandum of understanding with the United States government that will draw down U.S. financial military assistance over the next decade and replace it with what you refer to as a new framework of joint defense cooperation, co-development, co-production, mutual investment in areas including advanced missile defense, AI, et cetera, et cetera. This letter came from Benjamin Netanyahu, and it was addressed to Congressman Stutzman on June 1st. This is the letter that Ro Khanna is referring to. Again, this should be treason. And I have to bring this up. Not too long ago, I remember AOC was saying that we should not send weapons to Israel. And a lot of people got excited and said, yeah, but then she went on to say, Israel can pay for their own weapons. And I was cautioning people around the language that was being used. We're not going to use taxpayer money to pay for their weapons. They're going to buy their own weapons. And now you see it leads to, you see what I mean? It leads to this.
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, and this is what I've been saying forever, people, we've argued about this before because Peter will say, we have to break our alliance with Israel. And they are not an alliance. They are us. They're a tentacle of U.S. empire. They really are. And so it's, they can't exist without us. They can't. They cannot exist without us. They cannot be doing what they're doing without us. So clearly we already are doing all their bidding for them with no sort of repercussions, no nothing. So we're already doing everything based on what the genocidal entity is telling us to do. Again, this is just, to me, it's formalizing it, but I would bet you a whole lot of that has already been going on anyway.
Yeah,
That's what I think.
And you also have to remember that when you allude to this idea that we are Israel and Israel is us, it's about the ruling class. The ruling class of the United States has a substantial portion of that oligarchy that are Zionist Jews. That is a fact. And they have a very big vested interest in seeing this colonial project play through. And all the while, you see this unholy alliance that was formed with even evangelism in the United States, buying off all of these Christian Zionist pastors, particularly in the heartland in the South. And that's how you bring the two sides together. You just figure out what it's going to take to get the votes that they need. But at this point, they don't even care anymore. Like now it doesn't matter because they understand that the mask has been completely removed. There is nowhere to hide. There is nowhere to go. And now they're just brazenly doing it. That's why you don't know how evil and sinister Ivanka and Kushner are until you listen to them talk. They're very good about not being out in public about a lot of what they do. But they decided to be very public about what they're trying to do in Albania right now. And anyone who hears them can, the sociopathy, the psychopathy, and how they view the world, it's not just from a rich, privileged perspective. It's from a ruling, determined to destroy the world perspective. That's beyond dangerous. And this is also why we are of the mind, and maybe you are as well, that the biggest reason why Israel gets away with what they get away with is because they truly will employ the Samson option. If they go down, we're coming with them. The nuclear bombs will fly if they feel that their time is running out. I do believe that there probably is no way to avoid it to some extent, but that to me is the biggest reason why I think they feel so conscripted on Capitol Hill not to question this at all.
I think they would do it. I think they would try to do the Samson option. And I do want to show you guys this part as well. In that same committee hearing, so I love Gen X girl. Gen X girl was so good about like just basically making sure she was posting how much money they were making as they were speaking, how much money they were getting from pro-Israel lobby, so that people could see all the people that were against it. She was showing you, look, they're bought by AIPAC, they're bought by, you know, this pro-Israel lobby. But Jacobs comes in right about here, I believe.
Ultimately do is help save American lives, American service members' lives in particular, and strengthen U.S. national security. I yield back my time.
Gentleman yields back. Chair, and I recognize the gentlelady from California, Ms. Jacobs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The United States should have the same standards for Israel as we do for everyone else. If any other country in the world had been credibly accused of violating U.S. and international law again and again, of killing tens of thousands of civilians, of blocking food and medicine from reaching a starving population, we would not be moving to deepen and permanently expand our military ties with them. And yet, that is exactly what Section 224 of this bill proposes. Since October of 2023, the Gaza Health Ministry has counted more than 70,000 Palestinians killed in Gaza, a number that the Israeli military itself has now reportedly accepted. Another 1,079 Palestinians, at least 235 of them children, have been killed in the West Bank. Settler violence has reached unprecedented levels, and the Israeli Security Cabinet has approved 34 settlements in the West Bank, another violation of international law. But even against that backdrop, Section 224 would institutionalize and expand U.S. military integration beyond anything in the history of the relationship, fusing our defense industries across research, production, and emerging technologies. And for my colleagues who say that this vote is actually not about the actual provision, it is. Emerging technology is not an abstraction. It means cyber. And that is one field where we have already had to act against an Israeli firm for turning its tools on us. In 2021, the Commerce Department blacklisted NSO Group, the maker of Pegasus spyware, for malicious cyber activity against U.S. interests after its software was used to target government officials and journalists. 2 administrations from both parties left it on that list. And that same company is right now trying to buy its way into the American market. Fusing our defense and technology sectors together permanently with no conditions in the exact area where we have already been burned is reckless on its own terms. And it would do it through a must-pass bill with almost no oversight and with none of the human rights conditions that govern the rest of our security assistance. We already have laws on the books that tell us what to do in this situation. The Leahy Law prohibits assistance to foreign militaries that have committed gross violations of human rights. The Foreign Assistance Act prohibits arms transfers to countries that are restricting U.S. humanitarian aid, and Israel has been consistently blocking and restricting humanitarian assistance. These laws exist, and they're not being followed or enforced. And instead of demanding enforcement, this committee is proposing we reward that conduct. This committee should enforce the laws we've already passed and condition offensive weapons as those laws require, not permanently entrench our militaries together with no strings attached. A clear majority of Americans, 60%, already oppose sending more military aid to Israel. They will not support this, and neither should we. I urge my colleagues to support this amendment to strike Section 224. I yield back.
That was Jacobs. Yeah, Representative Jacobs.
Good. I just want to, can I just answer a couple people in your chat that are people that had a question? So Kenman, that's Jacobs. He was saying you know how their nameplates are like off, like off center. So it looks like, and she, by the way, yeah, so he thought it was Golden. No, it's Jacobs. And she is Jewish. And it's something that people should know. I will continuously try to, deconstruct the narrative that we're all the same, but yeah, no, I thought that was great.
You got to think, Sabby, that Jared Golden is one of those guys who is looking to line himself up with like a $700,000 a year job as soon as he's out of Congress. He's just one of those guys. He's a real dirty son of a bitch. You just tell. It's not surprising. And again, this also goes to show you like how far involved, like you were saying a little while ago about the treasonous aspect of what Netanyahu Milikowski represents in all of his cohorts. How many months now has he been saying we definitely want to get away from U.S. having to provide us with financial?
Why do you do his voice like that? You make him almost sound like Schwarzenegger or something. He isn't.
Don't question my
American, raised Canadian and Polish. Like, what are you doing?
Just give me 5 minutes alone with Milikowski. I'll take care of him. He'll be gone forever.
So the reason why this is a big problem is because you had Netanyahu on like 60 Minutes and a whole bunch of other interviews saying, we don't want to take any more money from the United States. We want Israel to be free of it. Well, guess what? The reason he's saying that is because as soon as the U.S. and Israel merge their militaries, he's got the biggest piggy bank in the history of the world. Like, why would he need any more money? He doesn't need any. At that point, you thought $4 billion was a lot of money? That's nothing. That's nothing compared to what he'll get if these two militaries are able to merge. You're talking about access to hundreds of billions of dollars. So, what, Jen? How do you know Israel's lying?
Their lips are moving. Their lips are moving.
No, it's true. Like, it's important for people to really understand that. Like, it's easy to say, I'm going to move away from U.S. funding, but that's because this was the deal that was in the works.
Yeah, they can't move away from U.S. funding. Let's be very clear, okay? Israel is not a self-sufficient nation. They've never been a self-sufficient nation. They cannot exist without us. We can exist without them. That's what makes the relationship be an appendage of us. Now, it seems the other direction because all of the Epstein class oligarchs that are all kind of working together have this sort of like agenda, and it's global. But yeah, it's all empire. It's all connected empire. So yeah, that's sort of my thought on it.
I want to pivot to Debbie Weiserman Schultz now, because for people who are not aware of what's going on, because of the redistricting that happened in Florida, Debbie was basically, I guess, pushed out of her district. And so she decided to run in a predominantly Black district. And there's been a lot of, uproar about it. People are not happy. So they decided to come together. And I don't know if everybody knows this, but they said to beat Debbie Weiserman Schultz, Black candidates consider coalescing behind one of the candidates. So this is a big one. I spoke to Elijah Manley on this show. He's one of the candidates that's also running in that district. But they really want to make sure they want her out of there. And she just won't go away. So Jen, you ran against her. Please tell people about Debbie.
She's such a crone. And I honestly, Peter and I both, we don't even live there anymore. Okay. So our interest in this really is, well, he just hates her and wants her gone. At this point, my goal is to try to protect the people of District 20. So District 20 is an 80% Black district.
Well, it's not that high, but it's a majority Black district.
It's a lot. And Debbie doesn't even live in that district. So what happened is her district got reshuffled so that where she lives, she now has to take a little bit more of a challenge if she runs. It's not like the overwhelming number blue that it was. What is it now, Peter? It's what?
So what ended up happening was she was losing ground in the district that she was in.
Right, but what did it switch over to?
So initially the district prior to the redistricting was about it was like a plus 10, plus 11 blue, and she was winning the district by about 8. And now it's been shifted into like a plus 4, plus 5 R in a redistricting year that includes new territory. And it, for all intents and purposes, will be somewhat of a blue wave year in the House. And so she probably wouldn't have been necessarily favored, but it wouldn't have been a situation where she couldn't have necessarily won.
Right. I want to say this. I'm being very clear, and I'm saying this to the Black community in that district. Many of the people I know Sheila, I know Elijah, one of my closest friends is friends with Luther Campbell, who's running. So I am very familiar. I know Dale Holness. Debbie thinks so little of you and your district, and this is to all the people in that district. She thinks so little of the Black community in general, but of that district in particular, that she is so confident that she can go into a district that she doesn't even live in and buy her vote, buy your vote, and buy her way in there. She's more confident in her ability to do that than she is in her ability to defend her own seat right now. That's how little she thinks of you. That's how much she thinks of you as useful idiots. Let me be very clear. And I will also say, she already knows she has the votes she needs. You've got 6 people in that race. They're going to all split the rest of them are black. They're going to all split the vote. She knows it. She knows she only needs like what, 20%. And she's already paid off all those people and bribed them. She has all the votes already in place. And the only thing that will save that district is getting behind one candidate and choosing wisely. And the problem is people cannot get out of their own ego and out of their own way to do that. And so we can talk about that and what we think is the best strategy for them. But at the end of the day, it's ego for a lot of people in this.
Part of the reason why the Democratic establishment is finally coming after her is because this is a situation where they're desperate to get control of the House. And she's effectively giving up a seat that now will assuredly go red, and trying to move in on an area that she has never represented. 85% of this district is a territory that Sheila McCormick has represented in the 6 years that she's been in Congress, or 5 years she's been in Congress. And so for Debbie, if you listen to the way first of all, if you ever listen to the way Debbie talks about the Black community, I mean, good God in heaven. It's bad.
It's not good.
On cringe. And so this is coming from somebody who, keep in mind, she already has $2.5 million just for the primary, which is the equivalent of having probably 2 to 3 times that in a general election that's competitive. So where do you think this money's coming from? This is a person who is as knee deep with the Israel lobby as you can possibly be, but that's not all. This is one of the worst congressional representatives in either party for the Black community, because this lady has taken money hand over fist from the payday lending industry for decades. If you want to talk about one of the primary reasons why the Black community can never catch a break, this is one of the primary reasons. This is one of the reasons why, if you go into the rougher parts of the Boston area like Roxbury and you want to understand why these areas are so tough, you have convenience stores, you have unhealthy food, and you have people desperately trying to survive, which is why you end up in situations where the neighborhoods are infested with drugs, infested with all different types of trades, because they have no other way of making money. So this directly correlates to how she has screwed over these people for a generation. She has been in elected office in South Florida for 35 years, and she's not even 60 years old yet. So when we say that if she gets this district, she will die in that seat. So don't fuck this up.
I know. I see people saying like about white people telling their people what to do. I get it. We're simply talking from a strategic perspective, knowing that district, knowing these candidates, knowing those people, and quite honestly, knowing a lot about it. That's it. It isn't about, this is just base strategy. Okay. The only candidate in that group that has the ability to raise the money is Sheila. The only candidate in that group.
Hold on, time out. That's not true. When it comes to raising money, that is going to be a problem for every candidate that's in that district, because if you've never been in an elected office, which Luther and Elijah have not, if you've been in an elected office but it's been years, which it has been for Dale Holness, and then you take Sheila, who is obviously involved in this scandal, but there's many layers to it, you realize that Debbie's been preparing for this for years.
Yeah, she knew this was coming. She had all her ducks in a row before we even knew what the district was.
Correct. And so this is an example of a chameleon who has always managed to save her neck no matter what happens. The idea that she was not run out of town in what happened in 2016, again, there should have, when the Democrats talk about, we need to have a reassessment about what went wrong in the 2024 election, there can't be a reassessment, because then you would be admitting that you are a failed party and cannot be resuscitated. The same thing at a much worse scale should have happened in 2016. Once it was discovered that Wasserman Schultz was working hand in glove with the Clinton campaign to screw Bernie Sanders, and everyone knows that that's what went down, that should have been the end of her political career. But as we know, in the Democratic Party, it's about protecting the moneyed class, first and foremost. And it doesn't matter how many people you screw. So the reason why Debbie's allowed to sit around, even though she's a complete sociopathic narcissist and a detestable human being, she's allowed to get away with this because of the fact that she plays ball. Nobody plays ball like she does. So when everyone's looking around thinking, okay, this is a big deal, the only reason, in my opinion, why Jeffries Apoc Shakur has not come out in support of Wasserman Schultz is because the Black community of South Florida is telling the powers that be, we are not having this. The Democratic Black Caucus of Broward County, they've already come out and said, we are not supporting her, but Wasserman Schultz knows the score, just as Jen
She
alluded
doesn't
to.
care. She doesn't care that they don't want her.
Well, it was also said in an interview that she lied when she said that that she had their support. There was a member of the Congressional Black Caucus that was interviewed and said, no, they did not give their support to her.
Correct.
Oh, well, are you talking, you're not talking about the Democratic Black Caucus in Florida, you're talking about the Congressional Black Caucus?
Yes, because they've been, like, people have reached out to them too, and they said, why aren't you guys saying anything?
They're not with her. And this goes back to something I just happen to know if you want like juicy tidbits of Congress gossip. So Debbie Wasserman Schultz had it out for Sheila from day one because Sheila had the audacity to challenge Alcee Hastings while he was still alive. And there is this thing among especially Black Congress people in Florida that they do feel they're entitled to bequeath their seat. They get to choose who they want to like take their seat. It's just this thing. And so Sheila had the audacity to run for that seat. And so Debbie went after her from day one. Debbie launched all sorts of investigations into Sheila from the minute she got in there. And one of the things that she did was be such a nasty bitch to her that the then head of the Congressional Black Caucus, which was Congresswoman Beatty, who was at that time when Sheila first got in, that's who it was. They went after Debbie. They stood by Sheila and they went after Debbie. And they have had a problem with her since then. So she has not been in a good way with the Congressional Black Caucus since she first went after Sheila in Sheila's first term, because Congresswoman Beatty is friends with Sheila. I met her when she was down here campaigning for Sheila. So when Debbie went after her, it was just a stupid move.
Yeah, well, this is also something where...
So that's a little bit of gossipy information that I have to share with
Well, here's a little bit of
She
other
went after, I heard Obama, she had some issue with Obama too.
Debbie?
Sabby.
Yeah, a lot of this goes back to Hillary again. I'm sorry.
Okay. So here's the trajectory that becomes so very interesting about Wasserman Schultz. So she got into Congress in 2004, and within one like congressional term, she was already like a ranking member of the DNC. By 2008. Or 2007, I should say. She's only in her second congressional term, and she's the campaign co-chair of Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign. And everyone was expecting Hillary in 2008. Like that's what Obama kind of came out of nowhere in a lot of ways. Once he got on that debate stage, you could tell he had it. So that's really what it came down to. But at the time, you were thinking, okay, this novice, this person who just got in there is already ascertaining this much power. Then you get to 2010, and they make her the chair of the DNC. Third term Congress member is the chair of the entire party. And a lot of people don't know this. You probably do, but a lot of people don't know this. Obama tried to get Wasserman Schultz out in 2012 at the Democratic convention in 2012. Now, it is very hard to find this clip, and I only found it once. And I wish I knew where I had saved it, but I can't find it. So there's a clip from CNN at the convention in 2012, where they said, we're looking to go in a different direction in terms of the DNC chair. They have Wasserman Schultz saying that the reason why the president is trying to get me out is because I'm Jewish. She's on record then. She tried to paint Obama as an anti-Semite. He backed off. She stayed in power. And what's amazing is that if it wasn't for the scandal with the presidential primary in 2016, who knows how many years she would have sat there as chair of the DNC. But we all know what she was trying.
She ran them into the ground. She ran them into the ground financially. She bankrupted the party, hence leading to where the Clintons had to come in and save the party with the Clinton Foundation.
That's another scandal that doesn't get talked about enough. 2014, when the Democrats got shellacked in the midterms in 2014, she was spending money like you would spend in a presidential election. So they went deep into the red. That's when the Clinton Foundation came in, funded the party, and then put all the hooks into everybody and said, we're riding with Clinton. It's my turn. So that's essentially how it went down. And now
Debbie Wasserman Schultz in a nutshell.
Yeah, pretty much. Like the corruption is just, it's like so acceptable in her mind. And so now this is our opportunity to get to put her away for good. Like, this
But
is our
they
chance.
have to coalesce.
Yeah.
They have to coalesce, because I kid you not, she would not be in this race if she didn't already know she had the votes to win it.
Right.
wouldn't
It's one of those things where because there's already so many people
I'm
that
I'm not entirely sure that at least one, if not more of those people are there as plants, so that that's exactly what does happen. And Debbie has been known to do stuff like that.
Yeah. I think that the only, whether you coalesce around one candidate and however that decision is made, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, in my personal opinion, the candidate who has the best chance to win this race, if they coalesce, is Sheila. And the reason I say that is because she's already been the sitting congresswoman to 85% of this district. You have 5 years experience. She's the first Haitian elected congresswoman in the United States. She's a black woman in a predominantly black district. Then you also have the legal situation that she's in. That is not going to become a court proceeding for another year. Now, another year from now, she's gonna potentially have to face the music. But for now, this is not an issue. So theoretically, it could be a situation where, let's say she wins the primary and then is reelected, she may have to step down 6 months into her next congressional term anyway. But if Wasserman Schultz gets that seat, she will do anything and everything to make sure that she never loses again.
She'll die in that seat, Sabby.
Yeah, it's kind of like Clyburn too. Clyburn has been able to do that in South Carolina. They get those seats and they hold on to them and they don't leave. I want to get your opinion about this. When I met with Elijah, I asked him, I said, have you considered running as an independent? Because, a lot of people, everybody's not going to obviously make it out of the primary. Only one person's going to make it out of the primary. And he said, well, no, I can't because it's past the filing date. I asked Lance Bostic, who is running against Hakeem Jeffries, which for whatever reason, even independent media is not willing to interview this guy. Like I brought him on and I asked him, if you can't make it out of the primary, will you consider running as an independent? He said he didn't even think about that. No one even mentioned it to him. And I want to get your perspective on that. Like, why aren't some of these people, I feel like the struggle is getting out of primary. Why aren't they running as like independents, you think?
Because they won't get money. Because they won't be able to raise money. Also, I mean, every district is very different. Let's be clear. Look, Bernie's technically an independent. I mean, it just really depends on the district. But Florida's District 20 in particular, like Elijah, if he ran as an independent, it just won't happen. The Democrat wins that seat. Closed primary. It's just a thing.
Take our mutual friend, Jose Vega. He is a primary example of somebody who fully identifies as a radical independent populist in politics. Mm-hmm. He is running in the Democratic primary because it's a strategy. Running in that predominantly Black and Hispanic district in the Bronx, the infrastructure in the Democratic Party is so thick that there is no other way to do it. Even a candidate who I do believe he has some pretty good chops. If you run within that particular, we even want to call it a machine because he's not going to be a machine candidate. That's not what he does. But if you want to at least get noticed and get support, I think that is a huge part of it. Now, if you obviously, we watch our respective podcasts, as we know, that we just had Shama on. And the thing about Shama that's so unique is that she's a truly dynamic candidate. She is an exceptionally intelligent woman. She is also somebody who has been in elected office for the past decade. So to say that she already has an excellent chance of beating Adam Smith, she's well funded. She has the name ID. And now she has the ultimate trump card, no pun intended. Adam Smith is the congressman who co-authored Section 224. If you want anything to run on, to basically blast out on a billboard and on mailers, you want to, I was telling Jen the other day, you need a billboard that says Adam Smith wants your kids to die in Iran for Israel.
Yeah. Just some I think it just really depends on the district, like in her district, and it depends on the race. So she has the name recognition because she has the history and the experience. So for her, she's just always been an independent. That's just who she is. You know, that's just who she is. But down in South Florida, not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And Shama's in Seattle, I guess, has a jungle primary, so everybody can be. Yeah.
Exactly.
And to be honest, if you are an effective campaigner, whether in a state like Maine, where we've seen that it works, which is why Plattner is catching fire, when you look at a state like Washington, when you look at California, even though I think Butch has a very bright future, he just has to figure out what is the best path forward in that respect. You know, power politics being what it is in California and the Democratic Party. And then you even have Louisiana. In the jungle primary states, if you're able to win a primary in the jungle system, regardless of what party you're in, I mean, that's how you change your fortunes like immediately.
Yeah,
that's one of the reasons why Ken Mejia was able to win to become comptroller. People forget Ken Mejia. He's the city comptroller in Los Angeles, and he's in the Green Party, and he's great. You know,
he was so young. He was so young when he got into. He was a baby.
But
I remember.
But this also leads to something that I think we don't emphasize enough in politics, and that is, there is an it factor to doing this. There just is. If you have a certain way about you in terms of how you connect with people, in terms of how they gravitate to you, that is one of the key ingredients to doing something special in politics. This is the same thing when you look at somebody like Dua Lipa and Bella Hadid. When you are dynamic, successful, beautiful women, and you use your platform for absolute good, that's how you draw in a lot of people who normally don't pay attention to anything that's going on in politics and are now paying attention to the genocide. So when you have that ability to lead, this to me has always been the biggest hindrance as to why Wasserman Schultz has always been able to get away with what she gets away with. I say it now, and I don't hold back on it. Tim Canova was not a good candidate. He just wasn't. And I think that has a lot to do with whether or not somebody is going to back somebody and use that money effectively in order to win an election. If anyone, and I mean anyone, is looking for an election right now in the United States that I would be focusing on, that I think we could all have an impact on, we got to get Shama Sawant into Congress. Like, to me, I think that there is an excellent chance that she can win that race as an independent. I mean, a lot of things are lining up. She has the name ID, she has experience, she has money, she'll have more of it. And she's not only going up against a complete Zio scum who's been in office as well for over 30 years, but this is also somebody who is directly involved with our country being conscripted to Israel. So all of that adds up, where as we have all come from this whole experience over the last decade, different relationships that have been formed, some have gone in their own direction. I would say that we have to become a lot more sound in our strategy, like how we execute. Like, to me, if I was running for office personally, I would be running with taking an idea from Jen when she ran the first time, which is, you can't just run for elected office. You have to run to create change. And one of the things that I would do is I would be running on setting up many local networks for whether it's community service, whether it is, it's slipping me right now, different types of mutual aid. Those things matter. And when you have the platform where you can create that sort of community identity, that's where a lot of that will come from. That's what Shama
will do that. Like, she would use her platform and open her office to create that environment, she is the person that would do that. And I do believe that. But as far as Florida's District 20, it's not good. It's not a good situation. I acknowledge it's not a good situation for them. They're kind of between a rock and a hard place. A lot of them are pissed off about Sheila. They're angry about Sheila for a lot of reasons. And again, I will say the disclaimer, I know her personally and I like her. I won't swear by anybody because we all know, we've been in this long enough that you do not know who's who, really. You don't know. So But I am saying that those are the two most viable. That's where you are. And so while I might not say, I would endorse Sheila, and I do not like her position on Ziohel, I have messaged her about this. She is somebody that can be reasoned with and who actually does want to work with and in the community. Whereas Debbie is one of the filthiest people to ever be in this game, and she'll die in that seat and you will have no control over it. So I hate saying it's a lesser of two evils for people if you have a position about Sheila, but it is. That's where we are. And I don't think they'll all put their egos aside and get behind her. I don't think Elijah will drop out. Like, I don't think any of those people will do that. They're too pissed.
And Sabby, this is also,
that's how it happens.
And this is one of the big issues for Elijah, for Luther Campbell, for Dale Holness, that Sheila is not going to have the same problem. And what I mean by that is, when you're running for congressional office against somebody like Wasserman Schultz, who's already a known commodity, you have to have a certain expectation in terms of the money that you are raising and the type of ground game, media game, and digital game that you're executing. Now, Elijah has done a very solid job of getting his name ID out there. He has been covered on local media, national media, and that's important. But you're talking about a concentrated older district that predominantly watches CNN and MSDNC. And as a result, a lot of the information that they're getting, if you have never read or have observed how the local paper of record, the Sun Sentinel, operates in Broward County, Florida, I mean, you want to talk about a protection racket for Wasserman Schultz, and always has been. This is a huge problem because of the amount of people in that district that still read that paper. And so that's going to be another huge hurdle. So where does that leave you? It leaves you with, what are your realistic expectations for fundraising? If at this point you are you are running for Congress and you've never been in elected office before, and you don't have at least, I would say, I'm being very generous here, if you don't have at least $250,000, if not $500,000 to your name, you're wasting your time. Because you have to get the mailers out there, you have to get the get out the vote effort out there, you have to have signs, you have to have people working for your campaign.
You have to pay canvassers. It's like it's an operation. People do not understand that.
Like, I can't help it.
That makes, yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it's like, this is where people don't like what we have to say when we're talking about it strategically. Yeah. So let's say hypothetically, I thought Elijah was the best candidate, and I don't. And I have a lot of reasons, some of them personal, some of them professional. Doesn't matter. He doesn't have the money. He's sitting on what is he sitting on right now?
The last check, and this is coming from somebody who actually is inside.
And again, this is public information. You can look up your FEC filings. This isn't like a secret thing.
And again, maybe he had a huge influx of capital. I don't know, but coming from somebody on pretty good authority, he was sitting on like $22,000. So not that you can't make use of that money, and you definitely can. But again, we're not talking about winning a mayoral election. We're talking about the United States fucking Congress. Like,
and really not for nothing. And this is the truth. I don't know if you're familiar with the demographics of that district, Sabby. Are you familiar with it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So and I know that you're familiar with other districts that are like this. These are old, in terms of the primary voters. Remember, guys, this is a primary. They'll be lucky to get 18% turnout. That's how few people will decide this. So in that, those types of voters that show up for the primary in this district are Black church ladies.
Yep.
It's the Black church ladies. They're doing souls to the polls. They vote on This is, I kid you not. And those church ladies are not, in a lot of ways, going to necessarily support a gay man. Now, I don't agree with that. That's obviously not my thing. But for people and like me, I have spent a lot of time in the Black community in that district specifically. And I just don't see it. Also, the other problem is lack of experience.
Yeah, I talked to him. I talked to him about that. that older voters are more likely to support someone that has experience.
Experience, and I hate and isn't a gay man. That is the look. Again, that's not me talking.
It's
you know?
wrong, but it's still the Dixie South in a lot of ways. And
I'm
then the
saying
one
if
thing-
we're talking strategy, we are just here talking. This isn't personal. That's my point. This isn't
Now,
personal.
Sabrina, the one thing that we really should be talking about that I think is important here, and obviously we both know Nina Turner very well. I consider her a friend. We were on the phone the other day, and she's coming to South Florida to try to lend a hand. And I was very clear with her. I said, if there is one thing that Jen and I cannot do, that the Black community needs to be doing, you guys need to be calling out these Black pastors that are selling out their people, that are taking Debbie's money and telling their congregation to go out and vote for Debbie. Like,
and they
they
do
are
it.
going to do this. This is a known thing.
I've been telling people about this. It's really sad. There's infiltration everywhere. There's infiltration in the church, and some people are paid off. A lot of this happens, but yeah, it's unfortunate. And then honestly, a lot of younger voters don't show up to vote in the primary. And that's another part of the thing. So people, Bernie, everybody referenced Bernie. That's a presidential election, and that's a different beast. And I think that
that's what I'm saying in your chat. They're homophobic. The Black churches are very homophobic.
Well, it's more so, I would say older, because a lot of the youth, not as much, but it's true. And I remember the reception towards, Pete Buttigieg is an asshole, a corporate asshole, but I do remember the reception towards Pete Buttigieg in South Carolina. So I remember, and I'm telling you guys, like, that
it's real.
There's still some conservatism there on that side. And, I think this is something too, the Democratic Party doesn't really want to understand. I think they don't really get that, but
no,
it's a reality.
And the other thing about something that we know just from doing this for so long, when you look at, like, if you were going to do, everybody's on a spectrum in terms of their flexibility of acquiring new information and changing their opinion. Like, let's say that's a spectrum, right? Some people are much more able to do that, right? Older Black women are on the most rigid end of that spectrum in terms of when you talk about pollsters and changing opinions and taking information about, like, how does this make you feel about it? Or how does that? It's a notoriously very difficult group to change the opinion from a marketing perspective.
And the only person's opinion that they generally will listen to is that of the pastor, it is a generational reflection. This is something that is deeply ingrained, and especially being in the Northeast, it's the Jim Crow South. And there are a lot of people that are still alive in the Black community that experienced it firsthand. And
I got to tell, I will say, I say this to people here in Massachusetts, that, like, if they didn't live in the South, I always try to tell people here and that have only lived in Massachusetts that the rest of the country is not Massachusetts.
Definitely.
And the churches in Massachusetts are not like the churches in South Carolina and North Carolina.
Nope.
And so, there's a whole other, part of the country out there. it's not like Massachusetts.
No, and to whoever in the chat is asking if we support Freeman, is it FB? What's the reparations or not? What's the abbreviation, Sabby? Freeman, it's FB, whatever it is. I always thought it was ADOS. Is that not the same as saying ADOS? Am I missing something?
American freedmen.
Okay, so, and I always thought it was American descendants of slaves, and we said ADOS, but whatever it is, yes, I do, because I believe that everybody who's due what they're due is due what they're due. I believe that you pay debts that you owe. I believe when you wrong people, you pay those debts. I believe that for all people. So yes, I do believe that. So
as the all-American white man, let me, now here's what I've always maintained. If you guys want to know the biggest reason why the Black community suffers the way that it does is because we have what is known as a corrupt banking system in the United States. You have certain areas, perfect example of this, if you're thinking Boston, you have an area like Roxbury, and then you have an area like Newton. And what the distinction is between those particular areas is simply this. The banks will decide who gets the money. Small businesses, education. Cambridge is a great example. It has probably, in terms of two universities side by side, there are no more powerful and what I would say world impacting universities than Harvard and MIT. And these particular areas get all of the money. Yep. And the other areas have to get the scraps. And redlining and blockbusting is still very real. It's not anywhere near what it once was, but it still exists, and it exists in different ways. Like I said, payday lending, that's one example. Student loan debt. Yeah, generational wealth, that's a real thing. People that have money, they'll send their kids to a $75,000 a year college or prep school. Doesn't matter because they don't have debt. However, if you want to try to get out of there and are in a situation where you could potentially get accepted, now you're in debt maybe for life. So usury, as has been pointed out, is a huge problem. And this is something that, again, I speak to this, and Sabrina and I have had conversations in the past. You know, I love you to death. And one of the reasons I'm able to talk about this is because I did live in the hood for 2 years. And I could see exactly what these areas go through to keep them this way. It's deliberate. Like, it's deliberate. Yeah. And so when you think about the overarching issue about reparations, and when people talk about this, it's like, language is everything, but you cannot deny the fact that we are living in a situation right now where there is sort of this great awakening happening. People are starting to kind of figure this game out, which is why the Zios are going absolutely ballistic over trying to shut people up. They have to shut them up because places like this, places like TikTok, you name it, we are able to get that message out there in a way that if Kennedy was assassinated today, the USS Liberty was shot down today, everybody would know about it.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Yes, it's true. All right, guys. Let everybody know where they can follow you.
Peter, where can people follow you?
If you're enjoying this conversation and you want to hear more about what we do, come on over to Revolutionary Change on YouTube. Sabby's been a guest before. She will certainly be a guest again. And we hope that you guys will subscribe, hit the like button, share the streams, and make sure you click that bell. There's one thing that I'm sure you have experienced as we have. Our channels are heavily suppressed.
Yes.
It's very difficult to get the message out there. And remember, this is something that we have said on our channel. We say it here. I'm sure you have as well. It is much more effective to suppress us, put us in a corner, than it is to just shut us down altogether. Because if you do that, you draw too much attention to what they're trying to do here. So by suppressing, that just makes it a lot easier to hide us. So we all need to be helping each other out. If you guys are coming here from our channel, subscribe to Sabrina's podcast, hit that like button, share and subscribe, and make sure you hit that bell.
And I just want to say to people in there that are, look, all the angry people that are saying, look, the white man telling us what to do, like,
that's okay. I can take it.
Yeah, I mean, guys, we've heard all this. And at the end of the day, we're really just trying to fight for the least of these as best as we can and share our privilege. And if you want to hate on us because of whatever, that's fine. It's just not productive. I mean, like, I actually spend a good amount of my time fighting for people that aren't me. You know what I mean? Like, so it's just, there's no need to, you know.
That's all. I don't care if people hate me. As far as I'm concerned,
I know you don't. I don't care if people hate me. I just think it's unproductive for people. It's like, we didn't come on here and bully our way onto Sabby's show. You know, she invited us on. So for people like saying we're here telling you,
then now you're feeding the trolls. You're feeding the trolls. And for those
I just don't want people to be so angry about it. Like,
let me tell you something.
You're good. You're good.
We're revolutionary change now, guys. We're revolutionary.
If you haven't noticed, you got people in the chat saying I sound like Obama. I had no idea. But you just
all right, they're gonna kill me. I have one more story I have to cover.
Oh, go, guys! Thank you. Bye, Sabby.
Thanks. Bye.
See you, buddy.
All right, ladies and gents, that was Jen and Peter. I know I've been keeping you guys waiting. Eric, can we go to part 3? I don't want to keep you guys waiting too long. I do have that one more story I want to cover, so I want to make sure I get to that. But we can talk for quite a bit sometimes. All right, the theme again, ladies and gentlemen, to remind you is more than meets the eye. So let's get to Candace Owens in Russia, because Candace went to Russia and people are melting down, honey. People are very angry with Candace. So she put the call out first. She said, I heard they don't spit on Christians in Russia or launder billions of our tax dollars on behalf of corrupt politicians. I'm excited to report back my findings. And honestly, the Zionist lore regarding Alexander Dugin, after I replied to him twice on X, is kind of making me want to meet him. The weird Cold War propaganda is played out. It wasn't effective during the media's Russian collusion era, and it's not effective now. St. Petersburg has always been on my bucket list. Never met a Russian I didn't like. So, of course, Laura Loomer here is like, she was responding to Laura Loomer, who is upset because Candace said that she was going to go to Russia. And she did go to Russia. And she was at Davos in Russia. Now, before I get to this clip here from Project Constitution, I do want to tell you guys, as much as people are pulling their hair out over this online, Candace Owens is not the only American who was at this event in Russia. It's a big deal. Like this St. Petersburg International Convention, it's huge. Tara Reid has spoken at this event before. I believe Scott Ritter is also there at this event. So it's not like Candace is the only American who went there to this event. She's not. So I just want to tell you that, because the way people are responding to it, it's ridiculous. Oh my God, she went over there to the Russia country. She went over there. So there is a lot of propaganda. There's propaganda about Russia, China, as you guys know, Iran, a lot of these countries that honestly, they're not really thinking about us like that. They're not afraid of us. They don't want to attack us. It's not even that way. And oftentimes these countries, they have a better lifestyle than we do, especially when you look at their infrastructure. So one of the things that Candace was surprised by was just how beautiful Moscow actually is. And I had students that were from Moscow, and they've shown me pictures before. Some of the architecture that exists in these other countries is absolutely astounding when you compare it to architecture here in the United States. When I lived in Germany, like, I got to tell you, the train don't just run, but the train runs on time and it's fast. The fact that Europe has had high-speed rail for years and we still don't even have high-speed rail right here in the United States. But guys, they don't want you to travel. They don't want you to use your mind. They don't want you to go to these places and see what it's like for yourself, because then you'll realize they've been lying to you. So this was her portion here at the Davos part. So we'll show this one first.
Наше государство с некоторых пор взял эти условия. Ценности, если есть ценности, то в семье воспитывать будет сложно. Если есть условия.
Much for having me. This is my first time in Russia, and it's been absolutely beautiful, wonderful, defied all of my expectations. I would say, especially within the government institution, public schools, you saw this sort of messaging when I was growing up that you cannot have both. You have a new age form of enslavement. And in this book, we do success, well, what is success? And in one chapter, I sort of explain who is the most successful man in the world, by and large. What's going on in Russia, what's going on in America, that there are no similarities. My entire trip has revealed to me just how similar.
Тем не менее, давайте придерживаться тайминга. Такова жизнь.
I think there's a lot of conversation. I've been having on my podcast, and Americans are really getting tired of funding, not knowing where money is going, learning that oligarchs are buying yachts. So we think about it at a practical level in terms of our taxes and where our money is going, which is never quite explained. But beyond that, we're trying to focus on a lot of home issues.
Yeah, so there's a lot of propaganda about it. And I've said this before, if you go to some of these countries and you see it for yourself, then you'll see all the lies that you've been told. And I remember when I was a kid, there were all these anti-Russia, like either movies or it was mentioned in TV shows. And they always portrayed Russia as like this vacant land with just mounds of snow. They wouldn't show like Moscow and like Moscow Center and like all the beautiful like infrastructure they have there. They wouldn't show that part. They just wanted you to know it was this cold, dreary place and people just drink vodka. And that's a lot of times like how it is depicted, right? Or if there's a Russian character in a movie, they just have to be part of the Russian mob, you know? Like they can't just be just a regular person. It's stuff like that. And so I employ people, if you get the opportunity to travel, to go to these places and see what these countries are like for yourself. I pointed this out when it was mentioned, when Ghana brought that resolution forward to the UN. It was very interesting to me, the countries that said yes and the countries that said no. The countries that said yes for acknowledging slavery and reparations was Russia and Iran. The Europeans said no. And I've been trying to explain this to people for quite some time. They don't want you to see that. Russia, when it was called the Soviet Union, they were the ones that after the US was basically saying like America was this democracy and it was open and welcoming to everyone. If I remember correctly, I believe it was the Soviet Union were the ones that called the United States government and said that they were hypocrites because of what had happened to Emmett Till and what was happening in the Jim Crow South. So there's a long history of this, guys. It's not like one day they just woke up and said, we're just going to say bad things about Russia. There's a long history of this. There was another part here when she's talking about Russia and big families. Listen to this.
I think at times there has been some conflict between governments and thinking that maybe you don't want that messaging to come out. Maybe they think, oh, we don't want people at home with big families. That's not going to help. And I couldn't disagree with that perspective more. Governments and institutions should encourage big families because it encourages better people, people that build with purpose and people that nurture with purpose. And so it really has been a blessing to hear about, to hear more intimately about what's going on in Russia in terms of those policies that are being put into place to encourage big families. And I truly believe that any nation that supports that sort of a dynamic, whether it's in the West and the East, or hopefully both Eastern and the Western Hemisphere, we will have a much more fruitful and productive society.
Yeah, this is this part here too, right? Like Americans, people like waking up. And again, it's like sometimes you have to go there to see these things for yourself, or you have to talk to people like who are from there. You know, some of these other countries, while they may be economically left, right? So they may offer healthcare to everybody. They may have paid family leave. When it comes to the social issues, a lot of times they tend to be more conservative. This is also very true when you look at some of the countries in South America as well, right? So they said, yes, we're going to give everybody healthcare. We're going to make sure that everybody here has paid family leave. But the paid family leave also ties into a somewhat conservative social issue, because the whole idea is that you are being paid to stay home and raise your child, at least for like those first couple of months. In some countries, it's the first 9 months. Some countries is a whole year. So it goes back into that family dynamic. But if you don't get paid family leave, you can't do that. You got to go to work unless you're rich, right? So who's more serious about building families? If that's something that is your concern, these countries that are letting people stay home and with their baby, at least for those first couple of months, who is caring more about families? You look at a lot of times in the United States, I remember seeing this so much. My coworkers, they like just had a baby, and next thing you know, they're already back at work because they only got like 8 weeks or something leave, and it's like, well, I got to come back, and then I had to take my PTO time to use some of the time that I had in the hospital, and this is insane. Nobody should have to stress themselves out about this. Then they're rushing from work to try to get to the daycare on time so they can get their child on time, because if you're late, then you got to pay a fine. What are we doing in this country? So those countries decided to prioritize family, infrastructure, etc. That's the difference. Now, like I said, socially, they tend to be more conservative. So I saw someone said in the chat that they don't like how this one here, I don't agree with Russia being homophobic. So this is what you'll notice with a lot of those countries. And I'm telling everybody about this to give you a heads up. And as someone who lived in Europe as well, a lot of the other countries abroad, again, they tend to be economically left, where they support like and implement like those universal policies. But when it comes to the social issues like LGBTQ, they tend to be a little bit more conservative. Now, that doesn't mean if you are LGBTQ, people are going to chase you down and try to kill you. That is not what I've been told. I know, I talked to Tara Reid, she lives there, that type of thing, but it's just not, I guess, something that is, I guess, pushed out in society. But I do want people to understand a lot of those countries tend to be that way, right? So it's not like someone's going to come for your head because you are that way. But it does seem as though like it may not be as prevalent as what you see in like New York City or something like that. And honestly, even in the United States, it's not as open here as you think. So we got to remember there's a whole part of the United States that's not my state of Massachusetts or California. And so just something to think about there. So I thought that part was pretty important. Yeah, they do tend to be, I know Christianity is also very widespread in Russia too. So again, but if you only watch corporate media, they would not tell you this. So she also sat down with Rick Sanchez, who also hosts RT. So listen to this.
Candace Owens, who's come and decided to talk. It's so great to see you.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome, fellow Americans, to Russia.
Yes.
So what are your impressions, first of all?
I mean, I've just been stunned by the beauty. I have not yet been able to run around St. Petersburg because we just got in yesterday. Yeah. But I was in Moscow, and Moscow was positively stunning. It defied, I didn't really have any expectations, but if I had any, they would have been defied by just how clean, how safe, how beautiful, how historic the city is. I wish I had spent more time, to be honest with you.
Its beauty magnifies the frustration that we as Americans bring in our hearts and in our minds, which we've been programmed to think. Isn't it? I mean,
I totally agree with you. Frustration is the right word, because I was experiencing that, where I was asking myself, why? Like, why can't we be told that this is a lovely, beautiful, safe city? Especially as a Christian, I think that frustration is magnified because there's so much wonderful Christian heritage in Moscow, and it's beautiful for us to be able to see it. And I always call it the Cold War hangover, where there's not really an explanation, but they just sort of tell you Russia is a no-no and a no-go. And you, as obviously I'm at an age now where I have to have experiences, I don't just trust the media.
If you're constantly told that this country is bad, like they said, Iran's gonna build a nuclear weapon for 20 years. If they constantly feed you with propaganda that these people are terrorists and therefore they're evil, all the people from that country, and it's just like, really, all of them? If they constantly tell you that, Russia is this hateful, cold place and all the people do there is just drink vodka or whatever, like, there's a lot of propaganda out there, ladies and gents. Eventually people start to buy into it, and your mind is changed by interacting with people who are from those places, or by visiting those places yourself and seeing it for yourself. This is something I know Mark Sloboda, who I should probably bring back on the show. It's been a while. Mark Sloboda and his wife, they live in Russia. Mark Sloboda is American. And he was telling me this too. He said, like, the way the West portrays Russia is wild as fuck. Like it's not like that. And so travel, guys. I tell you guys to travel. I tried to tell, people this about with the Russian Ukraine thing too. Like the way they fed that propaganda, like they don't want you to know that the Azov battalion has Nazi symbols and all that kind of stuff. Like they don't want you to know about the Nazism in Ukraine. It's very weird to me how they were trying so hard to cover that up when even the Peace Corps even warned Americans about going there to volunteer and what your experience may be like because of the Nazism. Congress wrote a whole letter about this, which Ro Khanna signed. That was a couple years ago during Trump's first presidency, where they were worried about the Nazism increase in Ukraine. So all of a sudden, this war started with Russia and Ukraine, and all of a sudden was, what Nazis? No Nazis here. No, I don't know what you're talking about. It doesn't exist anymore. None of that. They totally leave out the coup in 2014, that NATO coup. They totally just jump right in and say Russia invaded Ukraine, and they don't tell you what happened before that. It's just like when they tell you the same thing when the genocide started in Gaza. They were like, well, Hamas came over, they broke through the fence, and they just started killing people, and they put people in ovens and all that kind of stuff. And first of all, most of that was false, what they were bragging about there. And then on top of that, they totally left out everything that happened before that. So I'm still hoping that people will wake up from this propaganda about Russia too. The sad part about that is I see independent media also falling for it. Here's another clip here with Rick Sanchez.
They don't like independent people going out to speak because they know that it can fall outside of their narratives typically because there's a more genuine pursuit of truth and understanding. And it's hard to reflect. People don't remember because there's so many lies that were told. But at the beginning of the conflict with Ukraine, when I say they didn't even bother to articulate a reason, they were saying like basically that Vladimir Putin was sick and he had gone crazy and deranged. That was it. That was all we got. And so I had to.
And they're still saying that.
That they kind of moved away from it because it was supposed to be like an imminent death.
Yeah.
So like when that failed, they sort of moved away from that. But
I was just going to say Vladimir Putin, according to Western media, has almost died multiple times, according to them.
Now it's kind of back to that Cold War propaganda and Russia bad, while at the same time they're telling us that it's perfectly fine for entire portions of our Congress to go to Italy amidst everything that's happening in Palestine. That's totally fine. That's not evil. What's happening in Palestine and Gaza, that is not evil. So again, they begin to look cartoonish when they cannot apply the same moral standards.
Right.
Because if Ukraine looked like Gaza, if Ukraine, what was done in Gaza in that time frame was done to the Ukraine, could you imagine what the American media would be saying about?
That would have been a whole different story. It would have been a whole different story at that point in time. Right. So there is more to the story when you look into some of this stuff. Now, I want to show you how people are losing their minds. Mark Levin, another woke Reich traitor, Candace Owens. So he is responding to this guy is Mark Levin is not well. Dude's not well in the head. He's responding to this tweet here from Andrea Schaefer. Candace Owens gains 1.8 million followers on the heels of Russia visit. It pays to conspire with the enemy of the United States, Russia. 6 days ago, Candace Owens hit 6 million followers on X. Owens' following count gained another 1.8 million followers. Total followers, 7.8 million. You know what's funny? How they actually spy on people like this. Why are you watching someone's follower count? I don't even do this. I have no time for this, man. I have no time to sit up there on Twitter and to look and see how many followers people are getting. I just don't have it. But she did receive a community note. Readers added context they thought you might want to know. Candace Owens reached 6 million YouTube subscribers in late May, not 6 million X followers. Her X account has 7.8 million followers. Isn't that weird how people will like just look for that type of stuff? She went on to say, you would be dumb enough to believe something as absurdly made up as a 1.8 million follower gain over the course of 1 week. Can someone please help Grandpa Genocide log off the internet so he doesn't keep embarrassing himself with Zionist propaganda? She's responding to Psycho Mark Levin there. Like I said, that dude needs help. And of course, Ben Shapiro had to come in. Ben Shapiro, you know, they're all going to call her a Putin puppet now. So here comes Ben.
So the Russian op continues apace. They are bringing in a bunch of American influencers and American adjacent influencers in order to teach the West, I suppose, that the West is terrible and Russia's great. So obviously Candace Owens has been over there. She was tweeting out how beautiful Moscow is. I mean, the op is so obvious here.
So now they're trying to say that she's paid. They're trying to say that Russia is paying her, right? Because you can't just go to another country unless Ben Shapiro apparently approves of the country that you're going to. Ben Shapiro didn't care about the paid influencers here in the United States that were being paid by Israel. He didn't care about those $7,000 payment influencers. In fact, he probably supported it because it was Israel that was doing it, right? And the last thing that people like Ben Shapiro want is for you to actually start to like a country that is not Israel. So there's that. So everybody apparently is paid by Russia or Qatar. Qatar is always my favorite one that they use because, again, Qatar is basically just an extension of the United States. It's just, it's hilarious to me. So let me go to this part here, because these are some of the pictures that she showed. And I guess this rubbed Ben the wrong way.
Russia Today, which is a government-sponsored organization. It is a government-backed media outlet. Literal state media put out a tweet that shows Candace and George Farmer, her husband, with their kids in Moscow with all these pictures. Quote, unsurprisingly, they are lying to us about Russia. Candace Owens, after seeing Russia's Christian heritage firsthand. The Christian expression and heritage here is unmatched. Again, the religious levels of observance in Russia are almost non-existent. It is one of the most secular countries in the world.
If it's almost non-existent, what churches did she go to? Did you guys see this?
Literally on planet Earth. And also the Russian Orthodox Church is just an arm of the government.
This is a sad man. I think Ben Shapiro is just, it's sad. The crash out is bad. It really is. He's mad the Daily Wire numbers are down, and you know that dude just, he fell off his horse. But pay attention to this. This is what Benjamin Netanyahu is saying now about all this. Netanyahu's U.S. agent, anti-Semitism comes from Russia via Candace and Tucker. You see this? So he's saying that anti-Semitism in Russia has continued. He's calling out the Tsarist and the Soviet eras into the present. He's saying that the anti-Semitism comes from Russia. Who defeated the Nazis? Didn't the Soviet Union defeat the Nazis? Whoo, buddy. They really try, man. They really try. It's sad. It's sad at this point in time. So they're saying figures such as Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson have repeated or amplified narratives that align with Russian messaging. So they want you to believe Russia is the enemy, but Israel commits genocide and they're supposed to be your ally. That's how screwed up the world is. This is a bombshell that was dropped at that Russia visit as well. Rick did ask her if she was going to consider running for president, because people are saying that. She said no, but listen to what she did say.
Let me ask you a very important question, because you may have heard this, you may not have heard this, but there's a buzz out there in America that you would make a great next president of the United States. I apologize for asking, but...
No, you're fine. I always tell my listeners I'd never run for president. I'd only run for dictator, because I'm not dealing I'm not dealing with Congress. I'm not dealing with lobbying.
Right.
I'm not dealing with any of this. I'm not dealing with Lindsey Graham calling for another war. I'm just going to be like, here's what we're doing and here's what we're not doing. So I tell them, vote for me if the terms are acceptable, that I will be dictator of the United States, and that is it. But in the short run, I really don't have an interest in running for office because there is just too much inauthenticity. Also, the great letdown of Trump. I would be interested in strongly getting behind someone like Tucker Carlson, though. I would, and so I would love for him to run, and I would create the dynamic that me and Charlie had and run all over to help him get elected because he.
And Tucker was also very fond and friendly with Charlie Kirk.
He was,
Both of you
and
were.
to see him be one of the lone voices, I would also say Megyn Kelly, who told the truth about Charlie's shifting perspectives toward the end, just only further committed me to the, and he's also at a great place in his life. His children are older. I would gratefully get behind someone like Tucker Carlson.
So that's been put out into the ether. And you know what the thing is? That she said she would, if Tucker were to run for president, she said she would help him. You know what the thing is? And some people might laugh at this. Tucker Carlson actually could probably win. You know why? Because things are so fucked up. People are just kind of like, what the hell? People, I think at this point, they're not really looking for who's shiny and who presents themselves as flawless. I think they're looking for someone who is flawed. I think they're looking for someone who is a little bit more authentic, and you know who they are. You know what you're getting with that person. People laugh when I say it, but I think he could actually win. Even if he ran as like an independent, I think he could actually win. Because people are just tired. People just like, look, at least we know what we're getting with him. That type of thing. So it's interesting. I keep hearing that being put out into the ether, and it makes you wonder. Now, to be fair, I have not heard Tucker Carlson say he is running for president, but I am hearing rumblings of people alluding to that they would support that. So it's something to think about. But when it comes to Russia, again, travel. You know, if you get the opportunity, travel, go see these places for yourself. I mean, it's going to be different than what you're used to in the United States, yes. But just because you're used to something doesn't mean it's necessarily the best or better, you know? So people are mad. People are mad because she's out there in Russia. Someone said she'll probably go to China next. That's another one. Like, it's weird to me. Like, Hong Kong is like a world-renowned city that people travel to do business in and out of and everything. And it's like, if you say you're going to China, it's like, oh, you're going to talk to the communists. And a lot of people do business dealings in China all the time. All the time. So go see the world, folks. Go see the world. And let's not fall for the propaganda. Anything coming from the State Department, which is also done via corporate media, research it yourself. All right, ladies and gents, that is it for me. Ow, I hit my elbow. That is it for me, ladies and gents, for tonight. I will be back live again on Sunday. I hope you guys have a great weekend. And Eric is going to close out the show, and he will read the rest of the super chats.
All right. Don't hurt yourself hitting your elbow.
I know. And it's that spot where
You got it just right, right?
Yeah, you know that. Yeah.
Wasn't there an album, it was probably 80s or something, I'm dating myself, by the group Swing Out Sister called It's Better to Travel? I think it was.
I don't
all right,
know
before your time, but anyways.
But okay. I'm going to look that up, though. I'm going to look up
There you go. It was the album title. They had Breakout? Was this? Anyways, they had a hit or two, Swing Out Sister, but that's going back a ways.
I'll look it up. I've never heard of it, but okay.
You know the song
All right.
if you heard it. But yeah, we're going to talk about, I'm going to talk about demands-based stuff and billionaires.
All righty.
But I'll let you go for the night.
All right, guys, have a good night. Keep up the fight.
All right, we're going to let Sabby go on with her night a little early. Yeah, breakout. People in the chat get it, at least the ones who were around then. And drummer says, love them. George says he knows what I'm talking about. All right. Of course, as we kind of found out from the earlier part of the show, it can be a little bit dangerous to read the chat too carefully, but we won't get into that one. But what we are going to get into is, what do we do about this mess? Now, there was a new 11 Demands Substack article, and let me see if I can get to the right place to bring that up. That's about the billionaires, right? About those billionaires. And whenever I hear anyone talking about politics and talking about things, how things work and why they're working the way they do, I always want them to focus on the billionaires, focus on the money and corruption, and towards that end, I think we should start a new catchphrase, right? And I would propose the new catchphrase: "Billionaires suck," because they do in multiple ways, and that's what this latest 11 Demands Substack article is about. And before I get into it here, I'm just going to put it in the chat too, in case you wanted the link to it. But yeah, let's look into this one. Billionaires suck. Let's get one thing straight. The billionaires suck. And here's Elon and Bezos. And they do it in every way possible. These billionaires, are literally sucking the life out of us. While the 99% struggle and watch the world swirl down the drain, the billionaire class gets richer and richer. And that's literally richer and richer. You can see it in charts like this chart about the billionaire wealth. And, you notice this trend. While we suffer, they get richer and richer. And especially lately here, 2025, 2026, they are richer than ever. You want to know why we're having all these wars? Wars profit the billionaires. On top of that, the billionaires, they kind of suck as people as well. They're annoying, they're weird, they're repulsive. I mean, just look at Musk and Bezos. I mean, for starters. And now people will say, it's not good to personalize on these things, but this is not about who they are. This is about what they are. Compulsively acquiring that level of wealth is not normal or admirable. The level of unchecked greed, amounts to mental illness. The billionaires need therapy, not all our wealth and resources, and they certainly shouldn't exert corrupt control over our government. But here we are. Now, some people will believe the propaganda about how the billionaires are the great job creators, they're the innovators and leaders, when the fact of the matter is that everything that the billionaires acquire comes from the toil of the workers, the people who really do the work and the people who really innovate and figure things out. But let's say, for the sake of argument, there's a particular billionaire who's really good at running a company. All right, great. Then after we convert that company into a worker-owned and controlled enterprise, the workers can then vote, if it makes sense, to hire that billionaire on as the lead manager, and they can compensate them as a regular job. But we don't need the billionaires to have successful companies, and certainly we don't need them to have a successful society. What it comes down to is this: we cannot have a healthy society as long as the billionaires are in charge. What's important here, though, is the next part. It doesn't have to be this way. But to fix it, we first need to identify this core problem. Billionaire wealth and power is controlling our society and, crucially, our corrupt government. Now, the MCDS framework, which you'll hear connected to 11 Demands and that whole project, it brings clarity. MCDS, it's money, corruption, demands, solutions. It's a way of looking at things. After identifying the core problem of money and corruption, the MC, we must follow up with the demand. and this is key. You need to be elucidating, saying a clear demand. And the demand is fix big money in politics and government. It's the number one item on the list of 11 demands. And you can even click through right on this to that list. Nothing really gets better until we decorrupt our government. When we point out the problems in our society, in our world, we need to be relentless about connecting them to the billionaire class and calling out the corruption. We all have a role to play, and it's up to us to come together and fix this mess. And you can see more about that at the old 11demands.org, where you can go into the 11 demands and you can see what I was talking about here. Demand number one, fix that big money in politics and government, and there are real solutions to this. But it's going to need an 11 demands movement. Part of what all this gets into is that we're not going to be saved by a particular candidate, certainly not by anybody in the uniparty, in either of these major parties. What this needs is a movement. We need that mass movement based on clear demands with a strong focus on corruption. So we all have a role to play. Check it out at 11demands.org, and let's keep working at it, keep spreading the word, and getting a demands-based movement going. It needs numbers. If we get something going with numbers, then like there was talk about how candidates can't get elected because they don't have money. If a given candidate, especially an independent one, maybe even a green one, party one, gets enough people behind them and becomes a groundswell, that kind of a movement, then the money will come. I think you see it with a candidate like Kama Sawant, in that she inspires people and she gets those small dollar donations running in. That's where the real money will come in for an independent candidate. So it's about building that kind of movement. And please do check that out. Let's see what we can do collectively about it. Also, I want to point out, if you have a specific question for 11 demands, you can fill it in here in this form, and and we can talk about it here on this part on the show. So I'd love to hear from your questions, hear from anyone and everyone. But that's your 11 demands moment for tonight, and check it all out as usual at 11demands.org. Now, before we call it a night, we're going to see what we have in the super chat queue. Thanks for this super chat from Kay, who says, we're doomed. We're going to have to resort to, well, I'm not going to get into too much of what this super chat is saying we resort to, but saying, as Black American history shows, civility doesn't work. I'm shocked everyone is just watching the show. People don't really understand the U.S. government. So, while myself or the show are never going to advocate actual violence, I think it is important to understand, how the government works in terms of the corruption and the system. And, it's going to need people calling out the corruption and demanding an end to it. And it's going to need numbers. I think that's how we get there. Thanks for the super chat from Bent Arab, who says, I know for sure that 99% of Moroccans are against the Abraham Accords. Huge demonstrations across the country almost every day against the wicked Zionists. Thanks for that. And thanks for the super chat, M. Reese, who asks, can you please cover how Israel and the USA are trying to destabilize the Mexico government? Also Latin America in a future video, please. Thanks for that, and we will certainly keep that in mind. There are interesting things happening there for sure. Thanks for the super chat from Mr. Marlon Wells. Israel won't become the 51st state of the U.S. We are already the second state of Israel. Now they just want to make it official. And I hear where you're coming from, Marlon. I would just say, riding above all that and really pulling those puppet strings are the billionaires. Israel is where it is and has the power it has because Israel is a billionaire pet project. There is a certain number of billionaires that it's really their thing. And when you're a billionaire and something's really your thing, you can get it done, as Elon Musk shows. And they do it by corrupting our government, corrupting the system, buying the media. And, the 11 Demands movement and MCDS is about calling that out and coming together to fix it. So I'm all for calling out Israel as long as we then go up to the next level and call out where the real power is. Israel in and of itself doesn't have that. The billionaires have the real power. And thanks for the super chat, Sean, who says, let's keep it a band, Peter a pimp. All right. Thanks for the super sticker, Piano Man. Appreciate that. And thanks for this one, Roger Meadows, who says, don't forget they own the liquor stores too, Peter. And shout out to Regina Morton for becoming a member on the YouTubes. And Roger also says in the super chat, Peter, where you been? We've been doing that. Yeah, they recently had some back and forth going with the chat and our guest tonight. Next to this one, also Roger says, pork chop preachers like Sharpton. Thanks for that. And thanks for the super chat from Libertarian Social Democrat, who says, I am libertarian conservative for reparations for FBA. And thanks for this super chat, Marlon. When you burst the, quote, greatest country in the world bubble and see what they have in other countries, you realize we live in a third world country. I hear you, the only developed nation without real health care, but we get health insurance. And, again, connecting the dots, why is it like that? Well, the billionaires are doing great. And I think Sammy agrees. Thanks for the super chat. He says, F the billionaires. There you go. And, billionaires suck. That'll be the new catchphrase. And I think the last one we got here in the queue from Sammy. Also, thanks for the super chat, who says, I love you, Sabby and Eric. Greetings from Denmark. Well, thank you, Sammy. Appreciate that. Sabby appreciates that, and especially our overseas viewers. We love all our viewers, and the overseas ones are cool. And we like our special peeps in the chat, all one same, who says, capitalism kills. There you go. So on that, we're going to call it a night. You can catch us next live on, if it's Thursday, the next live show will be on Sunday. And Sabby will be live. We'll see what we got for you then. I'm sure there'll be new breaking stories, and we're going to have more interviews with more guests coming up as always. You may hear from more, or you may be hearing more about 11 Demands. I see a clarification here from Kay. Thanks for the super chat. Chimed in to say, I didn't mean physical force. All right, we'll take it. Sounds good. Yeah, I mean, if we get the numbers out there, right, literally millions of people in the streets protesting peacefully for real demands, behind a program of real demands, calling out the corruption, saying we need clean elections, we need clean candidates, something real can happen. We're seeing parts of, we're seeing a lot of chaos, we're seeing a lot of dissatisfaction, and there's a door open here for real change. So it's up to us to come together. I think the way to do that is with a set of clear demands and focus on that corruption, focus on that billionaire power that needs to be tackled. They need to be defunded. There are ways to do that. If you look at 11 Demands, it talks about, and you look at the list of the demands, it talks about the things that the 99% need, and also talks about there are things like how taxes are laid out, and about how the economy is structured, and things like regulation and the stuff that really can take on the billionaire class. But it's going to take that big movement, but I think we can do it. I hope you all think we can do it. We'll work on it. But that's going to do it. Speaking of doing it for tonight. But thanks everyone for watching. Thanks for listening to me rattle on. And we'll catch you soon next time. Thanks all. Have that good night. Keep up the fight, and peace out. See you next time.